My husband's sister died from falling down the stairs 6 months ago. Now my husband has suddenly and baselessly accused me of killing her. This is long and ridiculous. Sorry. My 30 husband, Luke, 33, had a sister, Laura, 29. We were all close and saw each other 2-3 times a month, along with their parents. Almost 6 months ago, Laura fell down the stairs at their family home and died. It was a freak accident. There's a window on the half landing and she hit her head on the sill. I was the last person to see her. I was there for less than 10 minutes and she was in her pajamas making coffee. I didn't even stay for a drink, and I struggle with how such a brief and meaningless interaction could have been her last. She deserved so much more. My husband and I have only been married for a year, but we've been together for 4 and have known each other for 20 plus. When Laura's parents found her, they called my husband straight away and we rushed over. We faced the whole thing as a family. In the days after, Luke started quizzing me. Exactly what we talked about. What she was wearing. Where we were standing, etc. It progressed to saying I was providing conflicting information, on tiny details he was deliberately misunderstanding, and accusing me of withholding information because I couldn't tell him things like what pajamas she was wearing. This escalated quickly but lasted for less than a week, as I lost my cool and made it clear that I was done answering questions. He didn't bring it up again and I wrote it off as a grief quirk. His behavior was generally that of a normal, grieving person. Last Friday, he outright accused me of murdering her, in front of his parents. Out of the blue. We were all stunned. There was an inquest which recently concluded and there was never any doubt the verdict would be accidental death. He said it was completely obvious and he couldn't believe that no one else could see it. He claims I went through his phone and found his messages with Laura. I have absolutely no idea what messages he's talking about. I have never looked at his phone, and that I went over to confront her and things got out of hand, and I pushed her downstairs. By the end he was shouting about going to the police and getting the inquest overturned, and how I wasn't going to get away with it. Let me be clear, Laura and I had a great relationship. We all did. I have no idea where this has come from, other than these messages I haven't seen, and even then, I don't think there's anything I could ever see on someone's phone that would drive me to murder. It's just ridiculous. He's been with his parents since this happened and will not talk to me at all. I've had some contact with his mom, but she's not being very communicative. The last I heard, she didn't know what messages he was referring to either. I am still completely stunned and I have no idea how to proceed. I made a commitment to be there for him always, and I understand that grief can manifest in strange ways, but part of me feels like my love for him died the second he called me a murderer, and I don't know how we could possibly work through this. I also really don't want to be thought of in this way, and I have no idea if he has said anything to people we know. I obviously haven't. A brain tumor or psychotic break has crossed my mind and I suggested it to his mother, and she just said she'll talk to him. Other than the questions before, he hasn't been acting odd. Obviously he's been grieving, but he seems sane and sensible other than this. I feel like I'm going mad. Does anyone have any advice at all? TL Doctor, my husband's sister died in a horrible accident and my husband, for absolutely no reason other than some mystery messages, thinks I murdered her? Edit. It has come to my attention that I accidentally used Laura's real name once in this post. Can I kindly ask anyone who commented who is real name? Delete their comment, as I really don't want this to bleed into my real life. For obvious reasons. Relevant comments. Moral_tack. Fuck no. You don't salvage this. You get a lawyer and get the fuck out. Best case scenario, he has just admitted to sending messages with his sister that he thinks would make you angry enough to kill her over them. I have some ideas about what those might be and they're all bad. How did the parents react when he did this? OP, when he first laid out the accusation, at his parents' house, both his mother and I just kept asking him about the messages and all he would say was that I know exactly what messages he was talking about. She was as stunned as me, and his father just said he didn't understand what he was talking about. He's a man of few words, but there was plenty of head shaking. The whole thing was surreal, no one knew how to react. I honestly don't know what kind of lawyer I would even speak to about this. From what I'm aware, the coroner's decision can't be appealed and the police can't launch an investigation into an accidental death. I don't think I'm quite ready for divorce. We haven't spoken since his accusation, and I walked out about 5 minutes after he threw it out, and I have no idea what his frame of mind is. Wonderful Prior 381. You need to get a lawyer to protect yourself in case he does go to the police. I would write down everything that you can remember that happened that day and keep it just in case. He may be having a psychotic break. As stated, don't talk to him or his immediate family or your friends without someone present, or preferably by text or email. Save everything. You need to take his accusations seriously and cover your ass. OP, I was interviewed by the coroner's office after her death as I was the last person to see her. She died about 3 hours after I saw her, and I'd been to the supermarket and was home by that point. It's all verifiable and was a recorded interview. I haven't spoken to anyone but his mother, and that's only been over messages. She's never been a big texter, but she has seemed very cagey over the past few days. I don't know if this means she's seen the messages. I've asked and been ignored. Grolshi's good. I think they mean to record everything you remember about the day your soon-to-be ex accused you of murder. OP, I'm feeling so freaked out at the idea that he came up with this almost immediately after her death, and has either been sitting on it or planning his confrontation, that I'm basically trying to dissect the past 6 months. Maybe it's time I start writing things down. Right until it happened, things felt very normal. Obviously her death has been felt deeply by all of us and things aren't anything like they were, but there have been no signs of anything like this, even on the day. OP on getting the messages. I'm absolutely desperate to see these messages, because I'm right there with you on the sheer wackiness of what they have to contain. It hadn't occurred to me that they might not exist. I've never known him to lie, but I do think a mental health issue is a real possibility. His relationship with his sister didn't seem odd, and I've never been interested in his phone, but he's never been defensive about it either, so I think you might be right. If I had such incriminating messages, I'd probably worry about them before now. When told to find an old iPad to use to access them, I have his iCloud password. It has a backup from yesterday. I have no idea how to turn this into something I can actually use. It doesn't have a messages folder or any signs of how to use it for anything other than restoring a whole phone, which I don't want to do. Does anyone know how to actually get the messages from this? Sorry to throw a tech support request in. I can't believe I didn't think of this. Huge thanks to the person who suggested it. Update 1. I'm in a bizarre and complex situation with my husband. I have broken the law, and I feel I have no choice but to do so again for my safety. I don't know what type of solicitor I need or what the next steps should look like. We're in England, and I'll try not to editorialize too much. My husband's sister died suddenly at the start of the year. Her death was an accident and there was no suggestion to the contrary. The inquest was recently concluded and a verdict of accidental death returned. I was the last person to see her, but her time of death, which was almost immediate due to her injury, was confirmed to be hours after I had left the house. All of this was verified at the time. In the immediate aftermath, my husband behaved strangely and kept trying to trip up my story of the last time we saw each other, which was a brief interaction. Last week, months after this was first and last mentioned, he outright accused me of murder, in front of his parents. He says I saw his messages with his sister and confronted her, and that he's going to have the coroner's decision overturned and have the police investigate. I haven't seen or heard from him since. Today is day 9. I posted for advice on Reddit. I'm pretty desperate at this point, and it has spooked me, quite reasonably I think, but also led to me committing a crime and planning another. My husband's iCloud credentials were saved on an old iPad in his office, and I downloaded his backup last night. I have read all of his messages with his sister, and there is absolutely nothing like he describes. I understand this is illegal and I'm concerned about the possible ramifications. I am also waiting for a callback from a locksmith to change the locks on the home we own together, which I believe is also against the law. So this leads to my actual questions. I feel justified in what I've done for my safety, but is there a degree of pragmatism under the law for these issues because of the situation? Or am I shooting myself in the foot? I am resigned to the fact my relationship is over, but his parents don't seem to be taking this seriously and they're icing me out. I believe this is a serious mental health issue which may put people, namely me, at risk. Can I do anything about this when all I have is the fact I'm being accused of murder? I feel he needs to be detained and this should be investigated as a full-blown psychotic break. Sorry, this is all a bit mental. In addition, what type of solicitor do I need? My understanding is that a coroner decision can't be appealed. Is that correct? Are his accusations going to go anywhere? Can I protect myself from this or stop him escalating to telling others? We live in our hometown and everyone knows everyone. This could follow me forever and it's either a lie or a delusion. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Relevant comments when told OP can't lock out her husband or force him to get a psych eval. OP. Thank you so much for your response. Locking each other out doesn't sound like a pattern I want to get into, but I think I'll go ahead and change them once on the basis that it isn't you did this so you have to leave the house, and also you'll be prosecuted. Levels of seriousness. In terms of him being deemed to lack capacity, is there any way I can trigger the process that you know of? Is something like this sufficient for the Mental Health Act to kick in? I've been Googling and you can be detained if professionals think your mental health puts you or others at risk, and you need to be in hospital, seems very vague. Obviously I'm biased, but accusing someone of murder and screaming about how they aren't going to get away with it feels like risky behavior. Does he need to have made explicit threats, or is there a clearer bar to meet? Sorry for asking so many questions. No firefighter, 9257. You are jumping ahead of yourself and playing out situations that have not occurred. If your husband reports you to the police for accessing his data and you are subsequently arrested or taken in for questioning, then obtain the services of a criminal solicitor for advice. With respect of changing locks, ending your marriage, seek a solicitor that deals with family law divorce. If you feel that you're at risk from your husband, talk to a domestic abuse helpline. If you feel you're at an immediate risk of harm, then call the police. If you think your husband is mentally ill and presents a risk to himself or others, call the police. I don't think that's a fair assessment. Being accused of arguably the most serious crime to exist has most definitely occurred. My understanding of the law is that something is illegal whether you're reported to the police or not. Those messages are evidence, as far as I'm concerned, that his accusations are false. They were apparently the trigger to me literally murdering someone I was extremely close to. I have illegally accessed them, and I don't think it's unreasonable to inquire as to the potential impact of that. I am fully aware that I need a solicitor, but as you're probably aware, today is Sunday. I don't know if I need to seek someone out based on a divorce, which honestly, if this is a mental health issue, is not going to be something I go for, or a criminal solicitor, or someone who deals with the Mental Health Act, as my absolute priority preference is getting him assessed. My only exposure to the legal system in my entire life was through the inquest, and that is obviously completely different to any of this. I'm not educated in this area. Commenter. It's sad and slightly suspicious that OP is jumping ahead to mental health assessments to defend themselves from accusations of murder when their husband is clearly going through some serious issues coping with the death of his sister. OP, what else can I do? He has blocked me everywhere, and we went from a normal couple dealing with the new normal 6 months after the death of his sister, to me being accused of murder over a family dinner because of messages which clearly don't exist, and it's been 9 days and I've heard nothing since. Can I remind you that the inquest was held and concluded? I dropped off some Tupperware, grabbed an umbrella I'd left behind the previous week, went to a big Tesco, then went home and called my mom. I was already home by the time she died, and my whereabouts were extremely easy to verify because my husband was home all day. It's obvious that he's going through some serious issues coping with the death of his sister. That is the exact point of all of this. Update 2. Firstly, thank you to those who helped me get to my husband's iCloud backups through an old iPad. I wasn't expecting much from Reddit, but I got valuable practical advice before my post was locked, and I appreciate it. There were no crazy, or even suspicious messages. I've searched for over 100 terms and scrolled back over the years. I saw a side of them both I wasn't expecting, but nothing that explains the claim I murdered Laura over their chats. Nothing to suggest he was cheating. Absolutely nothing to suggest incest. I repeat, no incest. No weird gaps where deleted conversations or a switch to another app would fit. Just siblings making plans, sending memes, and gossiping. They said unexpectedly horrible stuff about a few people, but not me. It was a sort of relief, but it raised more questions than it answered. I sought legal advice, also from Reddit, after posting here. Turns out my options are divorce him or sit down. I contacted my community mental health team, who said they'd reach out, but made it clear it wasn't urgent. I then called his mom and said that if I didn't hear from him by this weekend, I would get a solicitor and ask for a mental health assessment as part of the divorce. In response, he made a ridiculous post to Facebook, which neither of us have used in years, and everything blew up. I'm going to try to keep this succinct. On Friday night, he made a long accusation on Facebook, with new information. He said he'd been planning to leave me for months with his sister's support, and I found the messages, and murdered her. The coroner has reopened the case and the police are preparing to arrest me, and he needs to make sure people know before the trial stops him talking about it. It was well written and seemed vaguely plausible. He messaged people with links so it got some attention. We live in our hometown, and have a large circle of friends because we've been here all our lives. People I haven't spoken to since school were reaching out to me asking WTF was going on. It was madness. In response, I posted the export of his entire conversation history with Laura, also to Facebook, when I finally got back in. I linked to the chat along with a post explaining my side, and noting that I had changed my ex's iCloud and Apple passwords, and that if he wanted them back, he should comment on my post and update his own, admitting that he was lying. He eventually did. When I started getting messages about his post, I panicked, and changing his password seemed important to preserve everything because he'd know I had access. When I spoke to him the next morning, it's clear he's not having a mental episode at all, but is claiming one because he's been caught in a big lie. As soon as he was outed, he called me, clearly drunk, begging and promising to explain everything if I deleted my post. I hung up and told him to call back the next day. He did, after many missed calls and texts, and he tried to bargain and guilt-trip me with his mental health until it was clear the wrong people had seen his conversation. It's hard to describe, but it seemed fake. It was too well rehearsed, and then this morning, when it was clear he was getting nowhere, he blocked me. Begging for mercy and reciting facts about mental disorders doesn't align with someone in crisis with a sincere belief that someone murdered their sibling. The question of why he did all this remains unanswered, and he will not be getting his passwords until it is. The legal advice subreddit said this stuff is technically illegal, but it's beneath a court to take action, so I'm going to count on that because I felt like I had no other choice at the time, and now I don't see any other way to get answers from him. I am desperate and it's all I've got. So there we are. The relationship I have believed was my destiny since I was a teenager has boiled down to petty, convoluted and vindictive bullshit, played out on social media for reasons still unknown. My hope for a brain tumor is fading, and clearly tomorrow morning is going to be when I lawyer up and stop posting about this. I am mortified. I have no idea whether some people might believe him, and I still don't know why this all happened in the first place. Sorry I don't have a happier update, and thanks once again to everyone who offered advice. Weird guy shows up at my parents' house at 1 a.m. looking for me using details from 20 years ago. Help me figure out this mystery. Posted this on the Creepy Encounter sub and someone suggested I post here. This happened 3 nights ago and I'm going crazy trying to figure it out. I just moved into a new apartment 1 month ago and I'm still unpacking and settling in. I have been using my parents' address as my mailing address, who live a few towns over, 20 minutes away, all of my life. 3 nights ago my parents called me at 2 a.m. and freaked out and proceeded to tell me this story. Apparently at 1 a.m. someone starts banging on their front door and repeatedly ringing their doorbell. My stepdad walks downstairs and opens the door, leaving the front glass door closed and locked. There was a man standing outside, who looked to be in his 30s, with a black hoodie on with the hood pulled up around his face. He didn't have any distinguishing facial features, facial hair or tattoos. The only thing my stepdad said was that he looked to be Hispanic. Neither my stepdad or my mother, who was watching the whole thing out a window, recognized the man. The man says, "I'm so sorry to bother you, but I'm looking for my full name." My stepdad plays dumb and says, "Who?" The man proceeds to state my full name again and says that my boyfriend is worried because I didn't come home that night. He claims to be a friend of my boyfriend and tells my stepdad that they are both out looking for me, worried because I didn't show up at home. I don't have a boyfriend. I live by myself with my 3 dogs and haven't been in a relationship in the past 5-6 months. Here's the weird part. My stepdad asked the guy what boyfriend he was talking about and the man told him the name of the boyfriend I had when I was in 10th grade, nearly 20 years ago. My boyfriend in 10th grade has a very, very unique Italian name. I've never met anyone with a full name even close to his. He says my high school boyfriend's name a few more times to ensure my stepdad heard him and repeats that they are very worried about me. Is my stepdad sure I'm not inside? At this point my stepdad is weirded out and closes and locks the door in his face. The man does not leave. He lingers in front of my parents' house for the next 10 minutes, smoking cigarettes and talking on the phone. Finally, my parents called the cops. About 5 minutes before the cops arrive, the man walks down to the dead end on their block and drives away in a silver car. Stepdad was unable to get the license plate. My parents file a police report and nothing else happens. After I hear this story I am going nuts over the weird details. How would someone know who I dated nearly 20 years ago, and what would the motive be of making up a story that included that weird detail about my past? I have not had contact with a 10th grade boyfriend in over a decade. Yesterday, I decided to message him on Facebook to see if he has any insight. I tell him the whole story. He's just as confused as I am and claims to have no part in it. I am at a loss. I'm also really freaked out that some strange man is going through that much trouble at 1 a.m. to look for me. Any insights or ideas would be greatly appreciated. No, nothing else weird has happened since then. Update 1. Wow, this really blew up. Thank you so much for all the kind words and precautions that I should take. I want to add something here that a few people commented on, that might shine some light on this mystery. First off, I am not in any legal trouble and have no reason to think someone would be suing me. God, I guess it's always in the realm of possibility that I'm being sued by someone, but I really don't think that's it. Like I previously commented, I had an expired registration ticket that I did not show up to court for, but I believe I got a letter in the mail just asking me to pay a really large fee, so I don't think that's related. I did take a personal loan out. Took it out about a year and a half ago. It wasn't anything too crazy and I was really good with making payments on time until about 6 months ago when I had a medical issue. Currently, I am really behind on payments, but to my knowledge, I have not defaulted on the loan yet. What do you guys think? Related? I had absolutely no idea that this is a thing or I would have included this detail to begin with. Let me know your thoughts. Update 2. I have a list of a few things that I am going to look into tomorrow, based on my own thoughts and based on a ton of valuable feedback I got in here. Thank you. We'll post an update ASAP. Update 3. I'm so sorry it's taken me so long to update. It's a super busy time at work. Unfortunately, there isn't much to report. I called the loan company. They claim to have nothing to do with it. All of my friends and family also noted that the 1 a.m. factor kind of rules that out anyway. Nothing else strange has happened to my parents. I went there for the first time last night and kept a close eye out for anything, didn't observe anything out of the norm. So this remains a mystery. I'll be sure to update if something else happens. Final update. Alright, 1 year later I finally have an update to this insane mystery. I will include the original story here first, followed by the update. After this happened, my family and a couple of my close friends have been talking about this mystery in depth to try and put our heads together to figure it out. We all have our own theories, but ultimately no definitive answer as to what happened or who this creeper was. So we pretty much put it to rest and only continued to joke about it once in a while. Here's the update. My stepsister, my stepdad's daughter, and her fiancé were at a house party right after the holidays, around early January of this year. While they were there, they started talking to a girl that neither of them knew. After some time talking together, the girl started talking about her ex-boyfriend and how they were going through a really tough time together. They had just recently broken up and she felt really bad because he was a wreck over it. Somehow it came up that this girl's ex-boyfriend was my 10th grade boyfriend, the one with the really unique Italian name. The whole situation wasn't that big of a coincidence, since I went to high school with my stepsister's fiancé and we have a lot of mutual friends. So it makes sense that they were at a party that would include some people I went to high school with. As soon as my stepsister and her fiancé hear this, they both start freaking out and without revealing too many details, they tell the girl about the whole mystery and how weird it was. As they are telling the story, the girl's face starts to go white and she looks like she's about to cry. My stepsister and fiancé try to console her and ask her what's wrong. The wine beer had been flowing at this point, so I'm sure everyone was a little tipsy. The girl starts to tell them that a few nights ago, she was sleeping, and someone started banging on her door at, get this, fucking 1 a.m., just like what happened to me at my parents'. The girl jumps out of bed and says she was absolutely terrified by how loud and aggressive someone was banging on her door. She said she literally thought it was going to break in. The girl has a Ring camera, so looks at her phone. There on the camera is a guy in a black hoodie, banging on her door. She obviously pretends like she isn't home and keeps all of the lights off. He continues banging. As she is getting ready to dial 911, the guy stops and leaves. She said she was absolutely terrified. For whatever reason, she didn't end up calling the cops, but may have gone to stay with a friend that night or the night after. My stepsister and fiancé are shocked by the details and how similar it is to my story, especially because of the mutual ex-boyfriend we share, except this girl literally just broke things off with him. They asked the girl if she has any idea who the guy is and she said no, but that it definitely is not the actual ex-boyfriend. She said this guy was much taller and heavier than our shared mutual ex. How fucking weird. This mystery is still unsolved and these new details honestly just make my head spin even more. No one else has shown up to my parents' door since the actual incident a year ago. OP added extra info in the comments. So a few answers to some questions. My 10th grade boyfriend was into drugs when I dated him back in high school. No idea if he continued to use throughout his life or not, but can confirm he is definitely an addict who may or may not be in recovery currently. My 10th grade boyfriend has been to my parents' house multiple times. My parents still live in the same house I grew up in, and my 10th grade boyfriend has been over many times while we dated in high school. I don't know where he currently lives, but he grew up about 10 minutes away from my parents' house. My 10th grade boyfriend and I had a horrific breakup. I met my high school sweetheart while I was dating him and broke up with him in a pretty messed up way. He held a grudge over it all throughout high school and was extremely nasty to me to the point of bullying. At one point, I had to get a security guard to escort me to classes because him and his friends were bullying me so badly. The bullying was only severe for the rest of 10th grade, but he definitely hated me all throughout high school. At one point he did end up apologizing to me, and explained that he was just heartbroken over me breaking up with him, but at that point, I was way past the point of forgiving him. After graduating high school, We ran into each other maybe once or twice while I was home from college, and he was totally cordial and nice with me, and we laughed the high school experiences off. I can definitely try reaching out to him on Facebook again and bringing back up this whole mystery with the added updates from his recent ex-girlfriend to see what his reaction is and gauge whether or not he's being truthful in it. I can also ask some mutual high school friends who know him about how he currently is, if he's into any shady shit or not. My stepsister only gave me a first name and description of a recent ex-girlfriend from the party. But I can go on my 10th grade boyfriend's Facebook and look for her under his friends, then reach out to her on Facebook Messenger to inquire about ring footage and ask her more questions, also see if she ever reached out to cops. I agree this is probably the best thing to do if I want more answers, but I agree I need to be careful as I still don't know what is going on here. My 10th grade boyfriend does not have a brother, just one younger sister that I remember back from high school. Relevant comments from OP Comment 1. I just posted some answers in the comments about the nature of my breakup with my high school boyfriend and how horrific it was and how he basically harassed me for the rest of the 10th grade. Your last theory, and what a lot of other people are commenting on, is starting to make the most sense to me. It could be that my 10th grade boyfriend has a tendency to get insanely hung up on girls and is sending a close friend or relative to do these 1 a.m. drop-bys. And this would especially make sense if he is still using drugs like he did in high school. This theory being correct would mean he lied to me when I reached out to him on Facebook a year ago, which of course he would. If this is the case, it seems like he moved on to his current ex. I just hope he doesn't swing back around to me. Comment 2. I decided I'm going to try and find out the girl's full name so I can look her up on social media. I may even be able to find her with just the first name that I already know from my steps. I can go onto my 10th grade boyfriend's Facebook and look in his friend list for a girl with the same first name who looks like she could have been his ex-girlfriend. He may even have pictures with her tagged, so it shouldn't be that hard, unless he wiped his social media clean of her after they broke up. When I'm able to find her, I'm going to reach out to her and try and get some answers. I think this is the safest route since I still don't know my 10th grade boyfriend's role in this, and I did already ask him once and he claimed to have no part in it or know anything, which may or may not have been a lie. Based on how scared my stepson said this girl was, I'm betting she'll be willing to talk to me about it since we share the experience. I will make an update post when I have more info. Thanks everyone. My wife has ADHD, neglects our kids, and humiliated me on Father's Day. After much consideration, I've decided to pursue a divorce. I, 43 years old, try to do my best to provide for my wife, 38 years old, and our 2 kids, ages 3 and 5, as well as my mother-in-law. I like to think that I am doing a decent job. Over the years, I have worked to improve our family's living situation. Not only did I complete another bachelor's degree and recently a master's in a STEM-related field, but I also worked 2 full-time jobs while finishing my second bachelor's degree and supported my wife through her schooling as well. She completed a degree that allows her to make good money, $60-70K/year, in a healthcare field that always has jobs available. However, with the birth of our 2 children, she has since given up on her career to be a stay-at-home mom for the time being. At first, it was a struggle while I was finishing up my master's degree. Once I completed it, after our youngest turned 3, my career took a jump, and we are now able to afford our single-income household in a more feasible manner. We're far from rich but do okay for a single-income family of 4, a little over $150K base plus bonuses. This past year, life has been overwhelming for my wife, so even though I now work 75% from home, I budgeted to hire a daytime nanny to help her around the house with one child while the other is now in school. Every day, my day starts around 5:30 to 6 a.m. I prepare the house for the day before the nanny arrives at 8 a.m. I get our oldest child up and ready for school, make breakfast, plan out my day, drop our oldest off at school, and return home in time to let the nanny in. My current task at work has me grounded for the next 2 months, meaning I am now 100% working from home. While this is nice, I am busy in meetings all day as my role involves managing teams on a global scale and overseeing industry projects. For the past month and a half, I have noticed that despite my wife claiming her life at home is stressful, her day starts at 10 a.m. After a week of working from home, I asked my mother-in-law and the nanny if this was always the case, and they both responded that it varies, sometimes earlier, sometimes later. My wife literally wakes up, cooks, and then spends time scrolling through her phone or shopping online, which brings me to my concern. I am glad I can provide her with this lifestyle since we both grew up with limited means. I understand the possibility of postpartum depression, the stress of having kids, the feeling of being unfulfilled, and the fact that I may not be the best husband. But for what it's worth, everything is taken care of and then some. I manage the household finances, since she claimed she was too busy to do so. Pay all the household bills, cover my personal bills, pay her bills, track and perform all the upkeep of our house appliances, cars, pets, etc. And I also help pay for my mother-in-law's medical bills and car note. Despite this, my life is apparently much easier compared to hers. I can't decompress with her because she always feels the need to one-up me. If I have a bad day, she insists hers was worse because I'm lucky to go away and work. If my feet hurt from walking all day during work travel, she says it's nothing compared to her standing and cooking with a child clinging to her. For the past 2 years, I've been told I ruined her life and her opportunities. But when I remind her of what she says, she denies and dodges accountability. My mother-in-law has noticed a change in both me and my wife, pointing out that I have a greater attachment to my kids and that I've even hugged the dogs and talked to them more about my life than to my wife. I honestly feel like I'm in emotional survival mode. I am one step away from moving up the career ladder and one step away from finding love and comfort at the bottom of a whiskey bottle. I am sure I will be hearing from the manly men of Reddit about how I am simping. But I am not a machine. I just want to know and feel that someone I prioritize aside from my kids appreciates and loves me for what I do. I am sure I will hear from the stay-at-home moms of Reddit. Which is fine. I grew up in a single parent/mother household. It is not easy. And honestly, with the help of her mother and a nanny Monday to Friday, for one toddler while another child is at school, can you honestly tell me she is having the typical stay-at-home mom experience? Because neither my friends nor colleagues who are single parents can say she is. I am sure the masses of holier-than-thou Redditors will consider this a poorly written fanfic, but it is what it is. To summarize, TLDR. It feels as if my wife has checked out of our marriage. We are only roommates where she can still reap the benefits of marriage. I am not asking for her to throw herself at me all the time and let me do whatever I want. I really just want to be told I am doing good and to offer me some form of emotional comfort as simple as a hug, but I guess as the man who ruined her life, I deserve it. Thank you for the replies. To add more context, never cheated. I do work in an industry that has a large female population, but I am literally an open book with work, name colleagues and staff under me. She has access to my work agendas and correspondence if she really wanted to snoop, but on that note, she still does not know what exactly I do for a living at this time. We as a whole family, her parents and mine have tried to get her to go to therapy but she refuses or skirts around the issue. Aside from my coming from a single mother household, my biological dad was present in my life. She has had both parents in a reportedly monogamous marriage for over 40 years. I have tried to talk to her about everything and my own feelings but again, one-upmanship tends to be the trend here. What I am receiving from the marriage was asked. Now, aside from my 2 beautiful kids, I've been asking myself that same question. We have a near non-existent sex life mainly since last year. I always figured maybe it's part of depression or whatever she may be going through. Maybe I'm just not attractive enough or just horrible in bed because of my health conditions. I'm not some supermodel husband but temptation and opportunity does knock and I can perform still but I never give in, because as cliche as it sounds I honestly do love my wife and want to only be with her. I'll give credit where credit is due as I don't want to sound biased. When I say she wakes up and cooks, she cooks for everyone in the house. Myself, kids, MIL, and even nanny. Aside from breakfast she cooks all meals and snacks. I typically fast until lunchtime and our oldest tends to eat a small simple breakfast in case they don't like what school serves that morning. She does load both the kids and her laundry, but seldomly folds and puts them up. I typically do my own and the rest of my clothes I dry clean because they're work clothes. She does keep track of our pantry and fridge. But after she makes the list I'm the one who goes out and buys everything if not delivered. She does clean our bathrooms and house 50% of the time, the other 50% is done by either MIL or myself or sometimes nanny if she feels like being extra helpful. Prior to nanny, my MIL was the main help for my wife up until she had unexpected medical needs. So I opted to hire a nanny to help them both, more so when MIL is having treatments and recovering. Update, not sure if anyone would read this, but thank you for those who have reached out and chit-chatted. While I know I've kept my newfound friends here updated, I figured I'd just update my post and keep it short. I showed my wife my post the following weekend and she read it and all the comments. Long story short, argument, she left our house to stay with her sister, and I've been a single parent since. It's sad to say, aside from the good nights to our kids, it's all pretty much the same routine. Nothing much else to say other than thank you for all the kind words of encouragement. I just need to add, this post got bigger than I expected from a venting post but I've responded to a few comments. Nonetheless, thank you for the comments and DMs. And more so for the offers to let me ruin your life, huh? It's been the highlight of my day/night as I sit here drinking with my dog while everyone else is asleep. It feels depressingly sad that I feel that I have to turn to random internet strangers for some sort of validation in my rant. My apologies in advance as I try to keep this as vague as possible. I just wanted to update those who have been kind enough to check up via DM and comments. Apologies in advance for the lengthy post. It's a bit of irony and coincidence that I made a follow-up from the update on 06 May 2024 I made on my original post during Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, but I could really use another outlet outside of my therapist. My apologies if this isn't the storybook ending / destroying of a relationship people were hoping for. To save you a read, wife left? Came back like nothing happened. She made it about her. Nothing changed. I'm continuing to be suffering mentally knowing nothing will change while trying to keep it together for our kids. Lots of takeout. The day after she packed up and left, my wife attempted to come back and take the kids with her to her sister's. Naturally I was against this and thankfully so was her whole family including said sister. Not only was it not fair to our kids for her to sweep them away into a home that's not theirs but to put that financial and housing stress on the rest of her family since she doesn't work and her sister and her family, husband and 3 kids, stays with their dad in the house they grew up in. After a little over a week of being away, I guess she cooled off so she just decided that it would be fine if she walked in the door with her bags as if she just came back from Target. She came into my office while I was working and angrily stared at me while I sat on a conference call meeting with my team and I couldn't just jump off as this is a busy time of the quarter for us. I guess that didn't sit well with her because once I took off my headset and closed my laptop she started yelling at me about how much I really don't care about her and her well-being overall. At that moment I couldn't do anything more than look at her and just shake my head. Mother-in-law came in after hearing my wife yelling and pulled her away, telling her to not bother me, while our nanny kept our youngest away from it all on the other side of the house. That night after the kids were put to bed I sat in my office by myself with a drink as I have been doing for the past nights and my wife came in. We talked, we argued, we cried, we drank. One thing led to another and we were in bed. I wish I could say that was our making up but the next sobering morning as we laid there, she went on about how hard it was for her the time she was gone. Literally. It was about her struggles staying at her family house in her old room with her dad and sister's family. How lucky I am to be able to stay here and do this and that and buy this or do that and not stress as much as they did. How easy my and everyone else's in our family lives are compared to hers even though we had similar upbringings. My mind and heart broke that morning. I've been spiraling down since then and this last week I made another attempt to reconcile and talk things out, but I was met with a shouting match while trying to express my current stress and anxieties with life and work in general. Wife. Well, do you know how hard this is all for me? You're supposed to help me be happy. Me. So when it comes to my happiness, stress, needs, and overall well-being, FK me get over it, right? Wife. We all have our own problems, you need to figure it out and get over them. I don't know who the woman I am at home with is but that wasn't the woman I married and vowed to spend my life with and raise our kids together. Since that conversation, I've been noticeably distant with her. I've been sleeping in my office or on the couch or with my kids in their bed after putting either one of them to sleep. Still doesn't change her starting her day at 10 a.m., and sitting on her phone talking to her mom groups between cooking meals with the kids in both mother-in-law and nanny's care. Nothing has changed and I doubt that anything will change. Sadly, I think even if we got a divorce, nothing would change or feel different anyway since during my wife's leaving the days seemed like any other day except with a little more takeout than usual. My main fear there isn't that I wouldn't just lose my wife, I'd lose my kids in the process. So I guess it's sad to say the grand finale to my story. Like a lot of men and some women I've talked to here, I'll just continue to smile and suffer in silence. First off, thank you for all the comments and DMs, some context and clarification since admittingly my post was emotionally charged since I typed it up after another argument. Post-birth, our kids' pediatrician's office gave my wife those postpartum depression screening forms and during the time of both she scored pretty high and was suggested to see a therapist. With our second child she scored significantly higher and I made an effort to get her the help she needs. She refused, so entered mother-in-law and nanny for support. I know what people will say/think, but this is one of the reasons I'm not 100% ready to just give up and file our life together away. Also, I know silently suffering in the near and long run of our kids' future will not add to a healthy atmosphere, but neither would a bitter and hate-filled divorce. I know some have compared it to the ripping off a bandage, saying it'll hurt at first but that pain goes away, but I'd rather try to spare my kids thinking that their parents ended up hating each other because of them or something along those lines. I've told a few PPL I talked to in DM since my last post, a little more insight on my personal life, Prior to my promotion, I was a PM managing teams and budgets, so out of habit I planned for a lot of what ifs. That being said, I made a number of contingency plans if sadly things went south. So yes, I have talked to a lawyer, 3 actually. Know our rights and what each of us are entitled to. Have a draft settlement created and on hold until I feel I need to use it. I know what I want and am willing to offer more than what is fair for our kids' well-being, but also have a plan if we end up going to court. It's 100% on me that I'm suffering in silence, but I'm too stubborn to just give up, so while I'm venting, I don't expect anyone to feel sorry for me. I endure it to keep the norm our kids know, ensure my MIL's treatments go uninterrupted, and of course the hope my wife would finally be open to give therapy a shot and climb together to a better place. New update, I'm done. Wife said I don't do and am not shit in front of the therapist and family Father's Day dinner. She got served. She was mad. She is trying to act perfect and I'm just waiting while taking care of my family, kids, my mom, and MIL. Oh well, I'll just ruin everyone else's life too and my family. Secondly, to clear some confusion. I did not get 2 bachelor's and a master's while working 2 jobs at the same time as some readers are assuming. Bachelor's degree number 1 was completed in the early 2000s. Bachelor's degree number 2 was earned through online courses over several years, taking 2 classes per semester, all while I held down 2 full-time jobs. The first job was at a hospital with a 36-48 schedule and the second job was at a big box store, where I worked 40 hours spread out over 7 days a week. I worked these jobs to pay for both my tuition and my wife's, as she decided to return to school before we had children. After completing bachelor's degree number 2 and entering the industry where I currently work, I was able to transition to 1 job and pursue my master's degree. So no, I did not earn 3 degrees simultaneously or in rapid succession. I'm surprised that I have to clarify this, as working 2 jobs while attending school isn't that uncommon, or at least that's what I thought. My wife chooses not to work. She does technically have a job. She just barely works it to the point we forget she has a job, as in she worked one day 5 months ago for 8 hours on a Tuesday. Kind of barely works. Her job and manager is really supportive, flex PRN model, and gives her a list of days they need coverage and she can choose to pick up a shift or not. While she can work more and only does just enough to keep up her license, she complains to our family of her career being on hold for one reason or the other, although she has the opportunity to work more if she opted to. All things considered, she has an available supportive circle around her for either decision she falls on. Our family, her job and I have made multiple offers and taken many steps to open that door for her to go back to work. That is nanny, MIL moved in to help, I work from home, her crazy flex PRN schedule, etc., etc. But here we are. I am and have been in therapy for myself already. Aside from what I deal with at home, my work can be very debilitating in regard to my mental health as well as physical at times. Since I can't find the support I need mentally and physically at home with my wife, I've opted to attend therapy rather than find comfort with someone outside of the home or at the bottom of a bottle. I've tried to express this to my wife, and as mentioned in my previous post, she has a habit of one-upping me. And here we are. My in-laws are still married. Given the circumstances in our home, my MIL moved in to help out my wife, while my SIL and her family moved back into their parents' house due to their own reasons. SIL and her family can save money while getting back on their feet, and my wife and I benefit from MIL's help, and we can keep a closer eye on her while she undergoes bi-monthly treatments. My wife, by means of questionnaires, is highly suspected to have PPD alongside with a history of symptomatic OCD, ADHD, amongst other ailments that over the years she refused to get evaluated for or refused to accept results given. I knew what I was getting into, and I loved and accepted my wife for these flaws as she did mine at the time. Spare me your gut. I don't feel sorry for you, or pity. I am like every other man who fell in love and wanted to give my person the best of me and the world I can offer. But again, here we are. There are many men who identify strongly with traditional masculinity or the red pill ideology who complain and say that I am simping over my wife. While I respect your opinions and perspectives, I will outright say that if this situation were only affecting my life, I would have left a long time ago. As one Redditor mentioned in a previous comment that stuck with me, I am the kind of person who will take a bullet for his kids. Perhaps it was meant in a different context, but I am committed to protecting my children from any physical or mental harm. I am willing to metaphorically take the bullet as needed. I believe that other fathers would similarly respond to the duty to protect their children, and that's why I endured as much as I have. For the time being, I would prefer that my wife direct any problems towards me rather than our kids. Thank you all for the comments and reaching out. I've met many strangers who have become great Reddit pen pals and some who have been in the know of every step that has been progressing to this point. I am surprised at how far this has gone. from other subreddits, other platforms, and even YouTube. Love me, hate me, say it's all fake, no matter where you stand, thank you for all the constructive comments and DMs to check in. Our kids and myself are going to be alright moving forward. Now for the update. The end of an era. This will be shorter than some expected, as really there's not much to say but just satiate the questions some of you may have had and give people the satisfaction of the I told you so moment on Reddit. After a hard push from our family via an intervention, my wife and I finally attempted to go to marriage counseling. I'm sure many of you can guess how well that went. Blame, tears, regrets, gaslighting, with a side of I am the reason for her life being ruined and horrible. Again. Just this time in front of a licensed therapist instead of Reddit or mom groups. In the end, everything the therapist suggested and noted went over her head and ignored as it was against the grain of her status quo. One thing I guess worth saying was the therapist asked if she could recall when she last truly felt happy. Her response was about 12 or so years ago. Please note, 12 years ago she was still in her 20s, childless. Living with her ex. A vastly different time and position in life. I know it's petty of me, but I guess if that's when she was last happy, it wouldn't be that far of a stretch for her to find that happiness again since her ex is in the same apartment, job and place in life that he was 12 years ago. Which is fine, if that's how you want to live life. I try not to judge, but in my 40s with kids, going clubbing 3-4 days a week is not my jam anymore. And of course, I don't want my kids around a mom and company who drowns themselves in White Claws. To add, I know some will ask. I know and can confirm she hasn't physically cheated on me but can't confirm if she did emotionally, if that's the right term. After said therapy session I checked all her phone records and didn't see anything out of the ordinary, but I also didn't bother to check apps like IG or Snapchat. I know I'm probably boring, but shout out to all the Costco dads whose Sunday Funday includes making rounds with kids for samples. The following weekend was Father's Day, and this year is expected not that big of a celebration as it is for many dads out there. Our family got together to celebrate with a BBQ and just simple family time, and my wife treated it like any other day. Sleep in, get up, cook, phone, shop. Attempt to play with kids, phone. During said family BBQ my wife said she felt ill, so she sat around most of the day while the rest of the family as a whole made the experience enjoyable. When everything was set up and the family all sat at the table, her parents and sister's family, my mother, our kids, admittingly it was a great spread. Nothing extravagant but just a great meal for everyone. I was conversing with my brother-in-law about both of our kids' school Father's Day activities and I assume my wife overheard when I mentioned that it was a little sad to see some kids sit alone without their fathers during the breakfast with dad event I attended. She blurted out with a laugh loud enough for the whole room to hear, "It's not like you do anything anyway, I could have gone instead." At that moment I was red and at a loss for words, sitting there processing what she said in my head, while the dining room went dead silent. My MIL broke the awkwardness and in response said, "Well, maybe if you feel that way, one of you should divorce the other." My wife looked at my MIL confused that she would respond with that and laughed mockingly in my direction and with her hand pointing at me said, "As if another woman would want a man like him. Just look at you." While the room sat silent. I was angry, heartbroken, confused, and embarrassed all at the same time. In manly man fashion, I just nodded my head in silence, stood up and picked up my keys and got in my truck and drove off to get a drink while trying to ignore the cries of the rest of the family and our kids telling me to stay. I don't know what was said or done while I was out of the house the rest of Sunday, because I couldn't bring myself to check our house cameras. But when I returned early Monday morning, the house had a completely different feel. As usual, I woke up around 6, got the house and our oldest ready for school drop-off. Checked emails, checked messages, nothing out of the ordinary. As I was getting dressed to leave, my wife laid in our bed snoring lightly. All I could do was look at her and think of what we had, and now lost. I've decided. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I texted my lawyer that morning to move forward with serving her. Fast forward to last week, she was served at our home, reminder to people I had no choice but to be there because I work from home. She had, I guess what you could call a mini meltdown and came into my office screaming how could I do this to her. Her mother intervened, and that was met with me supposedly turning her whole family against her. But I digress, I probably would have felt bad if it wasn't immediately followed by the rest of her week acting as if she's been this active and attentive wife and mother the past few years. Sure, people can say she's making an attempt, but she's made many attempts, and historically we fall back to where we've been. For those curious, I am aiming for full or at least majority custody of our kids. I already and will continue to cover all the expenses for our kids, insurance, tuition, Both of our kids will be attending private schools come fall, medical bills, etc. My MIL has given me the courage and strength that helped supplement my own mother's support throughout this. Basically, she is what I hoped the kind of mother-wife my wife would have been to our kids and me. Out of respect for my MIL as well as per my own mother's shared wishes, I will continue to help oversee and contribute financial help if needed during her treatments. While some may feel I should cut their whole family off, I know the hardships pushed onto a family while dealing with cancer and have dealt with it firsthand as a family member and care provider on both sides of the desk. All in all, I'm prepared to go to war if needed, but I just want a clean no-fuss divorce. My wife has no alimony coming, so sorry for the Redditors and Mommy Gang Facebook groups saying she needs to divorce me first and get that sweet, sweet alimony money. 1. We live in a state that does not typically enforce alimony. 2. She has a means of gainful employment immediately. 3. To help curb any possible problems, I will cover her insurance and bills until either divorce is finalized or when she gains full employment. So that's that. I'm done and waiting for the steps to be taken for everything to be finalized. Sorry it wasn't as exciting of a story with plot twists as some may have hoped for, but that's life. Not sure I'll update this once it's all finalized, which probably won't be for a few more months depending if we go to war or not. I found out that my mother and my fiancé had been having sex for the past few years, leading up to the birth of my younger brother. My fiancé, 25, and myself, 24, have been together since we were 17-18 years old. Honestly, he was always kind, handsome, funny, and everyone used to say I was so lucky to have the whole package. I felt so lucky too. He always treated me with love and respect, so this makes everything just so shocking for me. I have always had a good relationship with my mom. It has always been her and I against the world. My dad died in an accident when I was little. We always joke that we are the real-life Rory and Lorelai from Gilmore Girls. My mom dated guys on and off and they were usually cool but nothing really past the early stages. Around 4 years ago my mom told me she was pregnant, which was a huge surprise. My mom was around 42 years old and although she was sort of dating someone recently, didn't meet the guy but knew she went on dates, it still was a big shock. She never thought she could be pregnant at her age. She had me when she was super young, an oopsie, and I can tell she was stressed and worried. I decided to support her, since she has always supported me and tried to reassure her. She then had my brother who is now 3 years old. I have a close relationship with my brother. I have helped take care of him since he was born and I just love the little guy. My fiancé was also always helpful with my brother. We would take him out for ice cream, playground, pool time during summer, etc. But nothing was weird. He was just my then BF spending time with my brother and I. Now to how I found out. My fiancé and I have been living together since we finished college. He was not at home because he was hanging out with friends, but I stayed home because I didn't feel like going out and just wanted to relax on the sofa. At some point during binge watching a series on Netflix, my laptop died, and I was too lazy to get my charger, so I used my fiancé's iPad instead. I know the password but had never used it before. The iPad logged in, and I received a bunch of message notifications. I guess he hasn't used it in a while either. Anyway, this got my attention, and I went to check it out, and of course, I found everything. My mom's number wasn't saved under her name, but I recognized it and verified it with my phone. She was telling him she felt guilty and that I should know. He said he also felt guilty but couldn't lose me and that they messed it up. She said it was unfair for my brother to never know his dad and asked if he could live having his son around, not behaving like a dad but as a brother-in-law. I broke down. What the actual F? There weren't a lot of older messages, just some photos stored of my brother as a newborn, my mom pregnant, and more photos of my brother growing up in an album. I couldn't anymore. I cried for what seemed like ages and I waited for my BF to come back home. I wish I was one of those women that can pretend and get things together before confronting the cheater, but I can't. He came back later that night, around 23:30, and I just gave him the iPad with the conversation opened and saw his face completely go pale. I asked for an explanation. When? How? Why? And he didn't want to at first, but knew he had to. Apparently a few years back while I was traveling with some friends, girls trip, my fiancé and mom had dinner together. This isn't strange since he has been part of the family for so long. Sometimes mom and fiancé would eat together at our place even if I was busy with sports or out. I did the same with his parents. Somehow, unclear how since he couldn't explain it well, one thing led to another and they ended up sleeping together. They felt guilty but apparently not guilty enough. BC they slept together 2-3 more times, using the excuse of meeting up to discuss how to tell me. Apparently when my mom got pregnant they stopped sleeping together and decided to not tell me, Since my fiancé loved me and couldn't lose me, and my mom didn't want to lose her daughter. So here we are now, with two of the most disgusting humans. I obviously broke the engagement, told my mom to never talk to me again and move in with a friend. I feel bad for my brother since I really love him, but I can't be around him now, I just can't. I feel like it would remind me of all those times we talked about having kids. I would be his baby mama, only baby mama. We talked about this future since we were 17 years old, so I want to puke every time I think how I was actually taking care of his child with someone else, while still having those dreams. I want to puke. Editor's note. Comments were mostly supportive, with a few telling their own stories of cutting parents off and a couple with tales of spouses sleeping with parents. How is this even a thing? People are crazy. Update 1, to the update. As I was afraid, I was indeed confronted near my office this week. I knew this was coming but thought maybe I had more time. My ex was the person to come find me. Yesterday, Wednesday, after finishing work and walking to where my car was parked, my ex was sort of lingering, waiting around. I thought about running. Not gonna lie, but I guess in the moment I felt strong enough to get over it, instead of having that hanging above my head waiting to be approached again. He asked if we could talk and I said yes, but I didn't feel like having that conversation over coffee like we were old friends. It felt ridiculous, so I told him to just talk right there. We were in the streets but somehow it wasn't crowded, but also not completely lonely. Felt right. He basically said sorry 100 times and that I deserved better. I agreed. He said he did love me and that he still does, but he would understand why I wouldn't want anything to do with him. He said that if I did in fact consider giving him a chance, that he would go to therapy, alone or together or both, and that he would work hard to win my trust back. I told him it wasn't possible. There was too much damage. This sounds calm when I type it, but in the moment things came out more with louder tone and harsher words. Anyways, he did say that he is in the or will be, it was a bit of a blur, process of getting custody, partly, from my brother, and that he in fact does want to be a dad to him. He said he does not want to be together with my mom, that it was just a stupid mistake. Sure, BC 4-5 times is just a random thing. He couldn't explain why he did it in the first place. I think he doesn't even know himself. I asked if he cheated with someone else before. He said no, not sure if to believe it, but he sounded honest. I asked why he didn't come clean, and he said that after he did the deed he always felt panicked and it hit him that he could lose me and he just didn't want to. I told him it was meant to be found out, that what was his plan? To have my brother around and ignore their relationship forever? He said he didn't think far enough and that he was basically going with the idea one day at the time. I asked him if he felt that my mom seduced him. He said it was mutual, which made me want to puke again. I asked if he has had any contact with my mom since I found out. He said yes, but mostly about my brother, didn't elaborate more, and I didn't press for more info on that. He said he told his parents the day before, or the day before that, not sure, Tuesday, about everything. The parents were not happy, but they are glad to start building a relationship with my brother, their grandkid. Honestly, all of this felt like a punch in my stomach. I don't know why. The parents wanted to contact me, but he told them to wait till he approached me first, hence why he was here. I said if he started or thought about the custody before I found out, and he said no, but when I found out was like the push he needed. Great. Seems I helped him get his shit together. And this past week he was arranging all of that mess, that's why he hasn't tried to see me before. He sounded and looked defeated, but the whole thing made me, besides sad, angry. I was mainly depressed before, but now I'm furious. I feel like he is still in an okay place and he isn't paying for his actions, beyond me leaving him. He will have my brother, his parents and others and move on with his life. While I lost everything. I hate him. We parted ways not on a happy note, and I told him to never get near me again. I was done. He asked me to see my brother still, that I was important to him, and tried to guilt trip me, and it worked, but I still think I can't. I don't know much about my mom and really hope she doesn't come find me anytime soon because I'm fuming right now and won't be able to handle it. I will be contacting my family and friends and finally doing the blasting today. I think it is about time, and after my talk with him, I got the extra push I needed. Editor's note. Top comment suggested moving to Australia. Can't fault that line of thinking. Update 2. A lot has happened. I did the blasting, and this is how it went down. I first posted on my family's FB group we share. This is from my mom's family side. I used inspiration of what you all suggested in my last post and said something around the lines of, I want to communicate to you all that my wedding with X has been permanently cancelled, since I found out that my mom, name, and my ex, name, had in the last few years a sexual relationship which resulted in the birth of my little brother, name. I had no clue of any of this, and I found out about it last week. I won't have a relationship with, name, mom, and ex, name, for obvious reasons. I would appreciate your understanding, and I felt it was only fair to let you know of the situation, since I value transparency and honesty above all. I also included a screenshot of my mother's message, what I said to her once I found out, and a message she managed to write back before I blocked her. Didn't open the message till before the blasting. I didn't want to read her and be persuaded. It exploded. I had family reaching out via text and calling the whole day after the blasting. I would say most were very supportive, and I could tell they were just shocked. There were a few neutral and some suspicious that it wasn't the whole story and maybe I misunderstood. My grandparents were in the maybe you misunderstood category, which wasn't surprising since my mom is super close to my grandparents, and like I said before, my mom was always a good mom. So no red flags. I will be moving with a cousin that is more like a sister to me. I haven't reached out to her previously because I knew once she knew everyone would. That's why I went to my friend's place. My cousin is devastated on my behalf and offered to live with her and her 2 kids until I can get my feet on the ground. I accepted and will be moving next week. I'm a bit afraid this will give my mom an easier access to me, but I can't stay at my friend's place forever. I then proceeded quickly to post a similar message for we share most of our friends since high school and local university, friends on Instagram. I created a close friends story and tagged most of them too. This went sort of viral in our friend group. Actually, one of my friends sent me my Reddit post and asked if this was me. I confirmed. They were also shocked and speechless. They never thought my ex would even remotely do anything like this. They said he was crazy about you. Oh well, apparently he went overboard on the crazy part. The group of friends is divided ATM, some are completely on my side, and some are thinking it isn't the whole truth. I told everyone that reached out that if they don't believe me to ask their friend if he is asking for custody of my little brother. That kinda shut them up for now. My ex deleted his social media. Also, my ex's parents called me like I guessed they would. They were kind to me and were very sorry about everything. I got the feeling they are also overwhelmed and very disappointed. However, it was clear they will be supporting their son. They are very upset at my mother, and don't want anything to do with her, but not sure how that will work with my little brother and everything else. They tried to give me info about the custody and what is my ex up to now, but I shut that down quickly and told them I don't want any info, I want to move on. I also asked them to not reach out in the near future, that I needed distance, especially if they will be supporting my ex. He is living with his parents ATM. Also, my ex and my mother after the blast were going nuts trying to reach out to me. They tried calling my friend, who she blocked them, and reaching out from different numbers. I had to put my phone on silent and ignore everyone. However, my mother sent me a long text, from another number, and that was a weird text. She said that I was being cruel and that she didn't think she raised me that way. She said she thought we had a better relationship than me blasting out laundry like that without talking to her first. That I didn't have the whole picture. She did mention something that confused me. She said in her long-ass text, that the reason she slept with my ex, is because he reminded him of my dad. That it was grief. That she didn't mean to use him to heal her pain, but she wasn't strong enough. I don't even know what that means. Like, did she think that my ex looks physically like my dad? Or personality? Or what? I have seen photos of my dad, and well, my ex isn't super different but also not super alike. I mean, they share brown dirty blonde hair, blue eyes, white skin. But that's not so uncommon. I don't see what else. I don't know. That threw me for a loop and honestly makes me want to confront my mom just to know what the hell. From all the things she could say, I was not expecting that. I'm holding on better, I don't cry every hour or want to murder them. But I'm still sad and upset, and it just feels like it isn't my life, that it is a big joke or a bad dream and I will wake up to my normal life. I also need to really start planning my future and start applying for jobs in other cities, or maybe check the possibilities abroad more seriously. I might ask for 2-3 days off work to really get my thoughts together and do some research. I'm terrified tbh. I feel frozen, but I know I need to start moving. Editor's note, this one has some funny comments. Commenter 1, that mom is hilarious. I thought I raised you better. I never in a million years thought you'd fuck my boyfriend, but here we are. Commenter 2, my petty ass would be sending her that. Commenter 3, right. The irony of her blaming you for airing laundry when she did that. Commenter 4, the laundry wouldn't be dirty if you hadn't fucked my boyfriend on it. Am I the A for telling my girlfriend she overreacted after walking in on her son and his girlfriend cuddling while undressed on vacation? June 28, 2024. All names are fake. I am 48 years old and have been dating my girlfriend Kelly, who is 50, for nearly 2 years. We are currently on vacation with her son Ryan, his girlfriend Emily, my sister, brother-in-law, niece and her boyfriend. To preface this, I know Ryan very well. I've known him for nearly a decade now. I was his coach in high school and we grew very close. He's practically a son to me. He's also been dating Emily since high school. When we were planning this trip, Kelly said that Ryan wasn't allowed to share a room with Emily. I thought she was joking, but she was not. I know Ryan is sexually active and I've known by word of his mouth since he was a teenager. I said fine, and the technical plans were that Ryan and my niece's boyfriend would share a room, and my niece and Emily would share a room. Obviously that room arrangement wasn't going to last. Everyone was fine with the technical room arrangement. The girls even had a slumber party one of the first nights. Ryan picked up that this was just to appease Kelly. I handed him his keys and said, "Give the second one to whoever," and he immediately gave it to Emily. My niece did the same in giving her spare key to her boyfriend. This is exactly what everyone thought would happen. Anyway, somehow Ryan had left his wallet in our room last night. Instead of bringing it to him at breakfast or knocking on his door or even shooting him a text, Kelly used the key in it to walk into his room. She saw things she didn't want to see. To be fair, they weren't having sex. What was described to me was that they were both nude, covered up at least on their bottom halves, but they were snuggled up and he was running his fingers on her back. This sounds like how most loving couples are after having sex. She was in hysterics. She refused to come to breakfast. I told her that was fine, but she wasn't going to make this a big deal on our vacation. Emily very sweetly apologized to me and said she knows how Kelly can be, which frankly made me feel terrible. When I went to retrieve Kelly from the room, she was still in a mood. She expressed to me how upset she was and I told her to be thankful all she saw was the snuggling and not the actual act. That made her really upset and I told her she was overreacting. Ryan is an adult who has been with the same woman for years. She has confided in me before that she doesn't like Emily, but frankly I've never seen her do anything wrong. She's a bit punky and Ryan is a bit more preppy, but she's a sweet person who cares deeply for Ryan and vice versa. She called me every name in the book when I told her she was overreacting. She called him a child and accused me of taking Emily's side over her. I'm genuinely concerned. I've even considered the possibility that she forgot to bring some mood-regulating medication because I have never seen her act like this, and I'm being shunned by her for being an asshole. Currently we're all sitting on the beach while Kelly mopes inside. Edited to add, I wanted to add some relevant information that I see asked in the comments. So Ryan and Emily live together and have for, I want to say, 5 years. Ryan paid for his and Emily's portion of this trip. When Kelly brought up them not sharing a room as I was booking it, I thought she was joking and just laughed. It wasn't until we were checking in and I was passing out key cards that she reminded me of what she said, and at that point, instead of arguing about it in the lobby, I said fine and handed people their keys and told them to do whatever they want. I just wanted a drink and eat some fruit on the beach. She knows she has an unhealthy relationship with her son and is in therapy for it. She does take medication, or medications, to help control her mood, but I'm not sure if she does so at the moment. I think that's all for now. If I see anything else I will add it. I'm sorry I can't get to all of the comments. There's a lot of them, and I'm on vacation. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, not the A. Yes, she is overreacting. Ryan is far from being a child. He's a 23-year-old man, and has been in a stable relationship for at least 5 years. Your girlfriend shouldn't have even been trying to police them via the room assignments in the first place. OP. Yeah, he is definitely not a child. They've been dating for closer to 8 years if not mistaken. I agree. It was a bit odd to me, and I suppose I should have questioned it more at the time as opposed to just shrugging it off. Commenter 2, not the A. Your girlfriend sounds kind of like a nut job with no respect for her son. Hopefully this is a one-off thing, but considering Emily said, I know how Kelly can be, I am guessing it is not. Hold firm on this one. Defend Ryan and Emily as much as you have to. They did nothing wrong and should feel zero guilt, embarrassment or any other negative feeling for this. OP, she's usually pretty great, though she's been cold albeit polite towards Emily for as long as I've been around. I'm not sure if something happened, but they don't get along well. With that being said, I do think I'll stick up for them on this one. I don't think I'm going to waver. This was uncomfortable for them too, and I don't want their time to be ruined because of it. Commenter 3. She returned the wallet that way so that she could catch them doing it and she could feel wronged and offended. OP on if his girlfriend is overly attached to her son. I don't think she's ever used the word stealing, but she did get in an argument with him maybe a year or so ago about how all he does is spend time with Emily. I can't be certain though, I doubt that argument was the first of its kind. Commenter 4, it's called enmeshment. Go on over to just normal and read the pinned resources. Commenter 5, not the A. Kelly sounds like the child in this situation, throwing a little temper fit because she isn't getting her way. Her son is an adult. He has sex. She needs to get over herself and let her adult son be an adult and make his own decisions. Kelly is controlling and obsessive and needs to stop because she is destroying her relationship with her son, and if he marries Emily, she's destroying her relationship with her future daughter-in-law. And what's going to happen when they have kids? Do you think Kelly is going to be welcomed into Emily's home to see her grandkids after Kelly treats her like a slut and pariah? Probably not. Update, June 30th, 2024. The original post and this update are a bit long, so I opted to write the update in a new post altogether. Apologies in advance for the lengthy post. First and foremost, thank you to everyone who commented. I appreciated the helpful comments and was entertained by the less helpful ones. Even if I didn't reply, I did read every single one. Before I get started, there are a few things I wanted to clear up. I know Kelly is mentally ill, however in the nearly 2 years we've been together I never really noticed anything particularly concerning. Her relationship with Ryan has gotten a lot better both from what I can see and from what Ryan and I have talked about. As for her relationship with Emily, she was never particularly rude to her, but they've also never been close. Kelly is in regular therapy and is medicated for mood regulation. Additionally, I am very careful when it comes to enabling behavior for anyone, including Kelly. The reason I took her comment about them staying in separate rooms as a joke is because I genuinely thought it was a joke. That was a ridiculous statement to make. I was sitting at my desk booking the rooms, she had made that comment. I chuckled, and then we started talking about something else. I had no reason to believe that she genuinely felt that way. When she reminded me of her rule in the hotel lobby, I looked at her like she was crazy. She didn't make a scene, and frankly I was exhausted, so I just gave up and handed people the pairs of keycards and told them to do whatever they wanted, and within the hour I was asleep on the beach. I spoke to Ryan before anyone else, apologizing on Kelly's behalf. Since I've known him the longest of the young couple, I figured it'd be easier to talk to him. He was surprisingly understanding of the situation, and apologized back to me for starting this whole thing, which I let him know was a ridiculous thing to apologize for. Before I even had the chance, he himself brought up emotional incest, and said that that was something she was really bad about when he was a teenager and still needed to work on now that he was an adult out of the house. I spoke with Emily and the conversation went similarly. Ryan has always been very strict on his boundaries surrounding how his mother treats Emily, usually leaving her alone for a few days or weeks until she is able to be respectful towards her again. When I asked them both if they knew why Emily was disliked by Kelly, neither of them knew exactly. Emily did suggest that right before Ryan moved out, Kelly had walked in on them actually having sex. Her reaction was even more extreme than this one. They had just graduated high school, meaning Ryan was about 3 months from 19 and Emily was newly 18. This argument caused him to move in with Emily's family, which according to Ryan was extremely tough for Kelly. That event practically thrust her into needing to deal with her attachment issues and trauma, because Ryan told her he would no longer be in contact with her unless she started going to therapy and working on herself. The day of the post, Kelly was able to get an emergency appointment with her therapist. After that, she had calmed down significantly and I was able to actually talk to her. While the whole talk was far too personal for me to go into detail about, I want to talk about a few points. The first thing I asked was what the actual hell was going on. While her unhealthy attachment to her son is at play, she told me the situation was triggering and sent her spiraling, then referenced the circumstances regarding Ryan moving out, which we had never spoken about before. She has a lot of trauma surrounding being a single mother, and certainly has abandonment issues. Ryan's father was a brief few-week fling who she thought would want to stay with her to raise a baby, and ended up leaving her alone. I decided to ask her why she disliked Emily. At first she said it was because she was loudmouthed and had Ryan by the balls. I told her to rephrase in a more productive way and she said she was opinionated and Ryan would move mountains for her. While I do adore Emily, she is certainly opinionated, but very intelligent and extremely respectful and polite. Additionally, Ryan hangs off of every word she says. He has told me himself that she's always the most interesting person in the room to him. That's not to say that both of them are perfect, in fact I saw them bicker about a plate of fruit yesterday, but they are both great together. I told Kelly she should be proud that she raised a son that loves and appreciates his significant other so much that he has openly admitted that he would do anything for her. That lightened up her mood significantly. Funny enough, her therapist suggested she talk to her primary care doctor or obstetrician, gynecologist about menopause, which was what another commenter suggested. Her therapist suggested her medication may need to be adjusted if that's the case, as the extreme reaction was frankly out of character, and there have been other mood-related issues she's been dealing with. Initially, I was not going to ask about what medication she forgot. As someone who is on antidepressants, whenever I would express rational anger, some toxic people in my life would immediately dismiss it, claiming I haven't taken my meds. I absolutely hate that. With that being said, I decided it was best for me to ask which medication she forgot. To no one's shock, it was indeed a mood-regulating medication. Her sister is joining us for the second week, so she will be bringing her medication. Finally, Ryan and Emily had joined us in a conversation. It was filled with a lot of apologies, a little bit of tears, and a surprising amount of hugging. From what I gather, this is not the first conversation of its kind between the three. One thing that was spoken about was how Kelly ended up with Ryan's wallet in the first place. Ryan is not someone who forgets their wallet, or their keys, or phone, or any other personal item. There was a brief argument about whether or not Kelly took his wallet, but she denied this, and Emily suggested it just fell out of his pocket when he laid on the couch. The biggest topic of conversation was Kelly opening the door with no invitation. She was not able to give a rational reason for doing so and finally agreed with Emily when she had said that Kelly just wanted to catch them off guard. Ryan also put Kelly in her place as far as boundaries go, which I have seen him do before but am always impressed by, considering I remember when he felt like he had to just let his mom do whatever she wanted so that she was happy. Kelly accepted responsibility and spoke rather openly about her conversation with her therapist, which led to a lot of compassion and understanding from Ryan and Emily. Emily expressed her gratitude for Kelly accepting responsibility, and even suggested they get a drink together. It was generally agreed upon that this entire situation was ridiculous, and that everyone just wanted to enjoy their vacation. Kelly finally gathered herself enough to join us all for our vacation. I feel at ease knowing I can finally, actually relax. Since then our days have been filled with drinks, beach, good food and naps, and I couldn't be happier. Relevant comments. Commenter 6. Very well handled OP and props to everyone for talking it all out and moving through it. Commenter 7. Good on Ryan for setting boundaries, but I feel bad that he's had to deal with an emotional incestuous mother his entire life. Hope his therapy is helping him deal with that. Commenter 8. Sounds like things ended relatively well, but I expect this will be a recurring issue for the foreseeable future, especially if she ever forgets her medications again. The fact that she still dislikes Emily because, 1. She's opinionated just like Kelly. 2. Ryan cares deeply for her. It is a pretty big indicator that the emotional incest is still extremely strong. Based on your post, it still does not seem like Kelly realizes the reason Ryan had to leave the house was because of how controlling and overbearing she was. I would think that after 5 years of therapy, Ryan being 18 to 23 years old, Kelly would be more in control of her actions and emotions related to Ryan and Emily. Commenter 9. At first she said it was because she was loud-mouthed and had Ryan by the balls. I told her to rephrase in a more productive way and she said she was opinionated and Ryan would move mountains for her. I love you for this right here. You seem like a very understanding and thoughtful dude. I feel like you handled this like a professional. No notes, keep being awesome my dude. Edit. I told Kelly she should be proud that she raised a son that loves and appreciates his significant other so much that he has openly admitted that he would do anything for her. That lightened up her mood significantly. God-tier diplomat commenter 10. He has told me himself that she's always the most interesting person in the room to him, is some sweet-ass shit. Makes my eyes go glossy. She should definitely be proud of the man she's raised, not battling it. But I get how difficult this situation can be. Glad to hear there's been some levity and love spread through here. Makes my heart warm.
Am I the A forcing my husband to choose between divorce and being a house husband while I work full-time to support the family? Original post June 18, 2024. Long story short, my husband, who is 37 years old, used to work to support the family while I, at 36 years old, stayed home to take care of our 2-year-old daughter. Last month he lost his job and told me he felt exhausted and was not eager to do anything. I said okay and offered to work so he could look after our daughter at home and get some rest until he felt better. By the way, our daughter goes to daycare, so it is mainly some housework and picking her up. However, he said no, he needs his time to be completely free. I got furious because this means either I work while also taking care of our daughter, or our family will face significant financial pressure. Despite my anger, I stepped back and had a hell of a month doing everything while he hung out with his friends and played PS5. Finally, I could not take it anymore and told him he had to choose between being a house husband or divorce. He chose the first option, but it felt forced. I keep questioning myself, was I too harsh? Any good advice would be appreciated. Update. I never thought this would draw so much attention. I am trying to read as many comments as I can, and I really appreciate your opinions, especially those pointing out things I should have told him and did not. I have decided to show him the post after work and see if we can have a real talk based on that. Again, thank you all. Too long, didn't read. I told my husband to choose between divorce and being a house husband. Am I the A? Relevant comments. Firstly, you are not the asshole for giving him the month off. That was super generous. OP, he was the one who supported the family before, so I thought I would give him time to recover. I was wrong. Secondly, you are not the asshole, but once you have a job and health insurance, insist that he gets therapy. It might be burnout or depression, but he needs to seek help, and you cannot enable him to sink into it. OP, thank you. I did not think of that, but he seemed really happy playing with his friends. Is that normal? Lastly, yes, when I get depressed, I can still read, but I don't really want to do anything else. Video games, binge-watching shows, reading and food can all give us a dopamine hit that may make us feel normal. It is important to call out the behavior and make sure he is attempting to get better. Part of it might be the ego hit from losing his job. The important thing is to not let it go untreated or unremarked for too long. Tell him adulting sucks, but we all have to do it. June 22, 2024. I decided to make a new post so it won't be too long to read. So I got off work, picked up my daughter and showed my husband the post after she fell asleep. I told him that millions had seen it and made various points. I admitted that my ultimatum was an impulsive reaction and that I preferred having a calm discussion to work through this. He said he was surprised I shared family matters on Reddit and that he would not have done it. He said he was not feeling depressed, just tired and exhausted after years of working, and he just wanted to be childish for a bit and really enjoyed the month off. I kind of understood because we used to travel a lot before our daughter was born and life has been harder since then. I told him I would not force him to work and that he could take his time as long as he could pick up our daughter and do the housework. He hesitated but told me not to worry. I thought this was the end of it. Then the next day, I came home from work to find his mother there. I was shocked because he had not told me anything. She started picking up our daughter and doing the housework. This is driving me crazy because I have never gotten along with her well, and my husband knows this. I feel like he asked her to come so he could continue being childish, disregarding how I feel. His mother raised him as a single mom, and according to my husband, she was very protective and planned to live with him for his whole life. He felt suffocated, so he went to a university far from home and reduced contact with her. I remember one time she came and got sick, vomited, and I cleaned up her mess. Suddenly, she asked her son to come and told him that her underwear was dirty and needed to be washed by hand that very night, even though we had a washing machine. My husband and I had agreed that our marriage was ours and that she would not come and live with us. He broke his promise. I am considering divorce, but I am worried our daughter is too young to understand it. I have thought about holding on for a while, but these days of living with her are already driving me crazy, and I do not see a quick end. I have thought about being an AH and forcing her to leave, but that might lead to divorce. I really need some advice. Thank you all. Too long, didn't read. I am 36 years old and showed my 37-year-old husband the last post, and we had a talk. Then, without asking me, he invited my mother-in-law to come, even though he knows I have never gotten along well with her. Relevant comments. First off, you tell him he needs to pull his weight as an adult, and his answer is to literally call his mommy to do the work for him. If he wants to be a child so badly, you really need to pack him up and send him back home with his mommy so she can baby him the way you will and should not. Not to mention that you're the breadwinner and can't stand this woman. Put your foot down and get both out of the house. You gave him an ultimatum. He woefully failed it. Now, you need to follow through with the other half of it and bring out the consequences. OP, I know this could be the final solution. Thank you. Secondly, if you stay, you will teach your daughter to also choose a man who mistreats her. Imagine your daughter married to a man just like her dad with a MIL just like yours and then make your decision. OP, I would hate myself if this scenario really happens. You have a point. Thank you. Lastly, What can you tell us about his mom? Doesn't she understand what you're going through given that she's a single mother, and why don't you get along with her? Any personal reason? OP, he and I have always known that his mother would do anything to be with him, and he has chosen to go for it. This sucks. I don't want to fight with my mother-in-law constantly for having my husband. The husband's post, June 29, 2024. I found out my wife posted about our situation on Reddit, so I thought I should share my side too. I lost my job in May and wanted some free time because life after having a baby feels suffocating. I've always been a free spirit, working and traveling, and then I met my wife, Jay. This lifestyle continued, and we traveled a lot, from Tibet to Antarctica. I was a seller, and she had a great business selling replica bags, making enough for us to enjoy our lives. We hit it off, got married, and had a great time together. We even considered being child-free and consulted an older couple on an Antarctic cruise, whose happiness convinced me this could be our future. The thing is, my mom really wanted a grandchild. At the time, I didn't think much of it and felt it wasn't a big deal, so I discussed it with my wife and we decided to go ahead. Her pregnancy was tough. She had severe morning sickness and I felt really sorry for her. After the baby was born, she wanted to focus on the baby and I agreed to hold the family burden alone. Life then became all about work, with no more traveling or other interesting stuff. So last month, I had enough. No more working, no more baby duties, and we agreed to give me a trial break. The past month was quite healing until one day she got mad and suddenly gave me an ultimatum of divorce. I didn't want a divorce, so I started doing housework, which I wasn't prepared for. Then last week my wife came home and asked me to talk, showing me her post about us in this sub. She said millions of people had read it and called me an immature AH. I was pretty upset and asked my mother to help with the housework so my wife would be relieved and, to be honest, to call her bluff. She's not happy of course, and neither am I. We've barely talked since then. Kind of a cold fight. These days, I've caught her several times watching her phone for a long time and sometimes crying. I believe she posted about us again, and I've been waiting for her to talk even though I wanted to start the conversation but got cold feet feeling the tension in the family. Writing this is easier. So here I am, Reddit. This is my first and last post about it. I just want to share my side of the story, and Jay, if you see this, I'm ready to talk anytime. Update 2, June 29, 2024. I've been hesitating because we had a great time, and I have been loving you. I didn't talk to you these days because I wanted to see if you would send your mother home and talk. I update now because, as you said in the post, I see you and want everyone, especially those who told me you might have been depressed, to see you. I can't believe you'd rather defend yourself on Reddit than talk to me face to face. If that's how it is, let's do this. New update. I talked with my psychologist and then talked with my attorney. July 11, 2024. After my last post, I was in a weird state. I felt trapped in a limbo where talking to my husband seemed futile, but the thought of divorce felt like an invisible hand was squeezing my throat, making it hard for me to breathe. I decided to make an appointment with my psychologist, who has known my childhood and understands my background, including my adoption and family dynamics. Yes, I am adopted. Although my adoptive parents treated me very well, I generally don't like to talk about it. Before I had my child, I specifically consulted the psychologist because I was afraid that my unresolved issues might unconsciously affect my daughter. So during our conversation, she pointed out that the child in me desperately longs for my biological parents, while the love from my adoptive parents makes me reject this idea. As a result, I am obsessed with maintaining the ideal biological family that I never had. This insight resonated deeply, making me realize why I had delayed taking decisive action for so long. After our session, I felt a strong urge to speak with an attorney about divorce. I wanted to prioritize my daughter's future over my illusory family unity. I gave the attorney all the necessary information and expressed my desire for a quick resolution. She informed me that the process could be completed in as little as a week if my husband agreed to cooperate, although it might take longer otherwise. She recommended that I discuss the matter with him to facilitate the process. So I have been planning in my mind to choose a day to confront him. During this period of hesitation, I came home one day to find that my mother-in-law had left. My husband had prepared dinner and apologized for his behavior. He admitted to being childish and expressed deep regret for his actions, acknowledging the negative feedback he received on Reddit. Realizing that so many people found his behavior unacceptable, he understood that he had been in the wrong. I reiterated that divorce might be the best option as I couldn't see a way forward together. In response, he handed me a letter taking full responsibility for the problems in our marriage and admitting his mistakes. He asked for one final chance to prove himself as a good husband and father, promising that if he failed, I could use the letter to proceed with the divorce at any time. After much hesitation, I agreed to give him this last chance and informed my attorney to hold off on the divorce proceedings for now. Although my attorney mentioned that the letter had no legal standing, she assured me she could handle the situation with or without it. For now, I'm cautiously optimistic, willing to see if my husband's efforts will lead to genuine change. If things don't improve, I'm prepared to take further steps to ensure my daughter grows up in a healthy and loving environment. I believe the decision is in my hands, and I am now determined to do what's best for my family. I want to thank everyone for their comments. They helped me see many options. I especially appreciate those who shared their life experiences, providing me with the strength to take action. By the way, I'm back to my bag business. If anyone has any issues or needs help with identification, feel free to DM me. I'll do my best to help, as I feel I owe Reddit for this. I hope this will be my last update. Top comments. To start, my ex's mother wanted a grandchild before she turned a certain age, and then there was an unexpected pregnancy, on my end. I later found out that while I believed we were using condoms, he was taking them off. I lasted until the twins were 3 weeks old before turning up at my parents' house in tears because I hadn't slept more than 20 hours in the previous 3 weeks. I was surviving on whatever I could scrounge up between breastfeeding and caring for 2 newborns, all while he was up playing video games with his friends all night, inviting them over, and asking me what was for dinner, etc. 2 weeks later, he was gone. And not by my choice. I was still in the mindset that my babies deserve 2 parents and that newborns are hard, so we just needed some adjustment time to get into a new routine. He turned to me when I asked to talk about setting up a way for both of us to be supported and spend time learning how to be a family. Even if that meant the twins and I spending part of the week with my parents, just down the street, we could almost see each other's driveways if you stood at the end of one. He told me he was moving 6 hours away. I was now a single parent. Good luck with life, and to keep renting the house so he has somewhere to crash if he felt like visiting, etc. His mother lasted another 6 weeks before she had a hissy fit over not being able to raise the twins or dictate how I did things with my babies. She wanted them formula fed, but I had a decent supply and no wish to be constantly washing and sanitizing bottles that weren't desperately needed. My twins are now 10. There has never been so much as a birthday or Christmas card from anyone in their paternal family. I did leave the door open for them to see the twins anytime, just let me know and I'd work it out. Their uncle sounded enthusiastic but never took me up on the offer. I recently found out that my uncle has just gotten out of jail for drug-related crimes and has been in and out of rehab. Reply: what an utter AH. Well done to you for persevering. The baby trap scares me too. The most ideal, perfect for each other couple I know had a poor baby and were screaming at each other within 2 weeks because the dad wouldn't step up at nighttime, claiming he'd already been up. He hadn't at all. He had already abandoned her shortly after birth because his mom needed him when she had a hip replacement, a scheduled, privately arranged hip replacement that she could have had any time, but deliberately chose the due date. And she has plenty of cash to hire a live-in carer. They're still together, and I get the impression my friend has just accepted she's the baby girl's mom, and he's their dog's dad. Pretty sure they won't have any more kids or pets. Another reply. Lastly, I had a friend who was with her on and off boyfriend for 10 years. When things got boring, he'd leave, then come back with some big declaration of commitment. Let's go on holiday, buy a house, have a baby. And every time, like clockwork, when things got into a routine he'd leave. The last time, he told her she had become bored after giving birth, she was exaggerating how much work a newborn is, and didn't give him any of her attention. He went to his family, who loved her, and claimed she had cheated to explain why he was leaving. She did a DNA test to prove it, but you could just tell by looking that it was his kid. The family believed she had cheated and got lucky. They all refused to acknowledge her or the child. He refuses to pay child support, to the point of quitting his job to avoid paying. Her kiddo is turning 10 soon. Every time she believed he had changed and wouldn't leave her again, no matter what we said to her. It's just sad to see someone trapped by lies when it's a giant red flag the Communist Party would be proud of.
We live with my wife's friend after her abusive relationship. Recently, I've noticed that she's intentionally trying to get close to me. I, 33, have been married to my wife, 31, for 6 years and we have a 3-year-old kid. We are very happy together and I am lucky to be married to a very kind and smart woman. My wife's best friend Anna, fake name for anonymity, has been living with us for the last 6 months. I wanted to talk about Anna to give a full context of why I'm making my decision. Anna has been my wife's best friend since school days. Anna was living in the city with her boyfriend, and we live in the suburbs of that city. They seemed happy together and were in a relationship for 2 years. However, my wife noticed bruises on Anna's hand last year and asked her about it. Initially, Anna dismissed it as work-related injuries. My wife kept on probing, and we learned that Anna was in an extremely toxic and abusive relationship. Her boyfriend lost his job last year and became extremely controlling and abusive towards her. He constantly accused her of cheating. Anna denies it, made her link her phone messenger to his computer and started micromanaging finances. There was an incident of domestic violence that was the final straw in my wife, and I had to rush to the hospital to look after Anna. Since Anna's parents are mostly absent from her life, my wife asked me if Anna can stay with us for a few days. We are 3 people living in a 4-bedroom house and have 2 spare guest rooms. I of course agreed to it and told her that Anna can stay with us as long as she wants. I think the incident completely broke Anna and she would just start crying randomly and completely shut down. It was really sad to see Anna in that state. She had to leave her job due to mental issues and stayed at home in the room all day. My wife is very kind and took care of Anna like she was family and made sure she felt loved. Anna is also thankful to my wife and I to help her in her worst time, and helps around the house and with our kid, though we never leave him alone with Anna. Anna, now is coming back to normal, smiles sometimes and has started looking for a job again. Now on to the incident. Last Friday, my wife and I went to work as normal and dropped our son at daycare. I had a doctor's appointment at noon and came straight home from there as I did not have a lot of work in the office. I made some lunch, and then went to my room to sit in my bed and reply to all the emails. Anna was in her room, and I did not talk to her after I came home. Around 2 p.m., I heard Anna's room door open and her walking in the hallway. Suddenly, our bedroom door opened and Anna walked in topless and just in her underwear. I was shocked and not sure how long I was staring at her. But after a few seconds I blurted out, "I am sorry." And she quickly covered herself with her hands. She was apologetic and started explaining herself. She said she just wanted to borrow my wife's clothes because her laundry was unwashed. It was super embarrassing to have a conversation with her in that state and I looked away. She again apologized and then went out of the bedroom. The incident lasted less than 2 minutes. After a while, she again came back into our bedroom, fully dressed, and apologized for the incident. She said it was really embarrassing and she did not know anyone would be home. I said it's okay and I should have told her I was back early from the office when I came home. She asked me to not mention the incident to my wife. She said she felt embarrassed when she walked around the hallway without clothes and that I saw her in that state. I said it's okay and let's forget about it. I have not told my wife about the incident and it's been 5 days. It was just a benign incident, but I somehow feel guilty about the whole thing. I feel more guilty that I am lying to my wife by omission of the truth. However, I feel that if my wife takes it the wrong way, it may strain her relationship with Anna, and I really feel bad for Anna for what she had to go through. I also do not want to make Anna uncomfortable in our house by telling my wife about her barging into our bedroom in that state. Am I the AH in this case for not talking about this incident to my wife? I am afraid that if Anna tells it to her first, it will make me look really bad and guilty. However, if I tell her, I do not want her to blame Anna for any of this and not help her in time of her need. Can someone please help me on how I can tell my wife about this? Relevant comments. Multiple Redditors advised OP to talk with his wife and not keep it as a secret from her if the incident was really bothering him. OP's reply. Thanks. This is really helpful. Maybe I'm overthinking this, but I have read that in these situations, the victim's trust in men is very fragile. Would it be horrible if I told my wife after I told Anna I would not mention this incident? Should I talk about this with Anna first? Comment 1. You would be the asshole if you do not tell your wife. Never keep secrets as a team with your house guest against your wife. Comment 2. Anna needs to tell her PDQ. She also needs to stay out of your bedroom. Do not keep the secret, that's what will destroy your relationship. I'll try to give Anna a pass, but some small part of me thinks she knows what she's doing, and asking you to keep it a secret is part of that. Update 1. I wrote a post yesterday about an embarrassing situation that happened between my wife's best friend who is currently staying at our house. I was not sure how to bring it up to my wife, and you guys really helped me a lot in understanding the urgency of telling my wife. I also got some cool ideas on how to bring up the subject without making it awkward for anyone. For everyone saying Anna was doing it on purpose, I did not agree with it, as I'm an extremely average-looking person and women don't chase me. However, things since last night have been just crazy, and I think I'm spiraling a bit. Sorry for the long post. So I decided to tell my wife last night as soon as she came home about the incident. I like the idea of jokingly bringing up casually so that we both can laugh about it and then forget it. Last night, when my wife came home, I made sure I stayed in our bedroom. I asked Anna if she could stay with my kid downstairs. As my wife was changing, I asked her if Anna still borrowed her clothes. Anna had to borrow them regularly when she first moved. Long story. My wife told me yes, and she has told Anna she can take anything from her closet if she needs it. I asked my wife if Anna told her about the funny incident from Friday. My wife said no, and I told her the whole story about how I came home early, and Anna came in the room almost naked to get her clothes, and how embarrassing it was for both of us. As my wife was listening to this, she completely froze and turned pale. She started murmuring in Spanish, which is her and Anna's native language. I don't understand Spanish really well, but I understood the words hombre casado and otra vez. I asked her if she is okay, and she sat next to me and asked me to explain everything in detail. I just told her it was nothing, and she must have not heard me coming in. I was trying to laugh it off, but my wife had water in her eyes. I kept on telling her it was not a big deal, but she kept on asking me for more details. She asked me how Anna talks to me. I told her that Anna barely talks to me since she moved in, except few words here and there. My wife then asked me about 3 weeks ago when my wife had gone to visit her parents for 4 days. Anna did not want to go with her and stayed back. I told her that Anna was just acting normal. She or I would cook dinner after I got home from work while the other took care of the kid. The only thing different was Anna generally spending her evening in her room. However, when I was sitting in the living room watching TV after the kids slept, Anna came and sat on the sofa next to me but did not talk to me. I asked her if she wanted me to change the channel or stream to something she likes, and she just said she wanted to get out of her room. However, she did not flirt with me or do anything unusual. I kept on telling my wife that it was just an accident, and I really did not understand why she reacted so emotionally to it. My wife refused to answer and just said okay and agreed with me. However, she told me I should have told her about the incident sooner and should not keep any secrets from her, and gave me a big lecture. I told her that I did not think it was a big deal and thought Anna would tell her, but glad I brought it up. After dinner, my wife massaged Anna to join us, and she came out. While talking, my wife brought up the incident and told Anna that I mentioned about the incident and she does not need to feel embarrassed. Such things happen when we are all in the same house and it is not a big deal. Anna was firstly taken by surprise, but then told my wife she was just scared to tell her because she thought my wife would judge her because of her past. My wife gave her a stare and she quickly changed the topic. At night, I asked my wife what the hell was going on. I told her to please not keep any secrets from me, and if she does not tell me, I will directly ask Anna about what her past has got to do with anything. My first guess was Anna might have had a thing for me before we got married or something. But my wife was very reluctant to answer and kept on trying to change the subject and cuddle. However, I kept being persistent and she finally spilled the beans. Apparently, when Anna was in her early 20s, she was in a relationship with a married coworker who was twice her age. It was a kind of sugar daddy relationship, and he told her that he was in an open relationship, or that's what Anna told my wife, and he would leave his wife in a few years once the kids go to college. This makes sense now, because Anna is very pretty, like Miss USA level, and I never understood why she was single for most of the time I knew her. She eventually ended that relationship and started dating her boyfriend Jim, who turned out to be an abusive asshole. My wife said she suspects Anna was still involved with the older guy while in relationship with Jim, which explains why he kept on accusing her of cheating. That is why my wife became emotional when I told her what Anna did, because she was worried Anna has no boundaries regarding married men. My wife said that Anna always looks up to us and praises me for being such a loyal partner and how lucky my wife is. My wife was worried initially when she brought Anna home, but her actions from the time when my wife was away clearly show that she respects the boundaries, and it must have been an accident. My wife told me she is grateful I let Anna live in our house and observe what a healthy and happy marriage looks like. This morning was even more weird. I got up early as I could not sleep well and went down for a cup of coffee. After 5 minutes, Anna walked into the kitchen and told me she was relieved my wife did not overreact to Friday's incident. She said I'm a good husband and gave me a hug and peck on the cheeks. She has never hugged me in the last 6 months. She seemed to be in a happy mood and was making small talk with me while having coffee. I cannot believe my wife did not tell me such a huge detail about Anna for all these years. It's completely possible she cheated all through the relationship with Jim, and my wife is just covering for her all along. She even kept it a secret from me, after giving me a lecture about how we should never have secrets. And I don't know what else she is hiding. Everything just seems very confusing at this point. I feel angry at my wife for lying to me all these years for Anna. I also now see Anna differently. I am also worried that me trivializing the incident to my wife might have sent wrong signals to Anna. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Anna needs to go before her own messed up issues lead her to further mess with your marriage. She was testing OP again with the hug and kiss on the cheek, and I didn't see OP writing that he told his wife about that new development. She's gotta go before she pushes to the next level. OP's reply, yes. I am also a bit mad at myself for trying to casually describe the event as some of the Redditors advised and not talk about the fact that she was in the room for a lot longer. I was worried that my wife would be pissed at me. Now I wish I told her all the details and did not make it sound trivial. My wife now trusts Anna and I am getting more uncomfortable. Multiple Redditors urge her OP to tell his wife about the hug and kiss. OP's reply. I agree with the hug and kiss part here. It is not uncommon for my wife's friends to kiss me on the cheek when they meet me. I am not from that culture, and initially it used to make me uncomfortable. But something about today morning with Anna waking up so early, coming down in her bedclothes and sitting with me rubbed me the wrong way. I am not able to point out exactly what, but she was acting differently. For lack of a better word, she looked happy for the first time since she moved into our place. I have not told my wife yet. Things have been a bit icy between us since yesterday, as I am still upset at her for keeping secrets from me for all these years. I know it's Anna's personal life, but I feel a bit betrayed that for all these years, she knew Anna was with a married man and never even mentioned it to me. We had a talk in the evening and she apologized, but then we both dropped the subject and took our son to the playground as the weather was finally nice and had an amazing time. However, I plan to tell her as soon as we both are alone at night. As I said in the comments, I do not think she will mind, since it's not uncommon for her friends to give a quick peck on cheeks when saying hello. In fact, I was not comfortable with it at the start, and now I am used to it. Her mom, cousins, friends, everyone kisses me. There are also weird rules, where married women like my wife just hug, but non-married friends give a kiss, unless you're family. Also, only girls give a kiss, but men don't kiss girls on cheeks. I learned that the hard way. I am not Latino, Colombian to be exact, and maybe someone who is familiar can explain the rules here so people who don't know the tradition won't misinterpret it as anything sexual. Also, I never keep anything from my wife, and hence I felt so guilty about my actions over the last week. I am sure I will mention it to her before the end of the day. Update 2. I wrote a few posts a month ago regarding my wife's friend Anna accidentally walking into our bedroom topless to get my wife's clothes while I was in the room. We addressed the issue the next day, but I learned more about Anna's past and why my wife was uncomfortable due to the situation. My wife and I talked to Anna and told her it was not a big deal, and we all decided to move on from the incident. After I posted the update, a lot of you advised me to tell my wife about Anna hugging and kissing me, on the cheek, the following morning. I felt uncomfortable with the situation and the comments really made me nervous. Most of you were reading my post as a telenovela or the start of a porn movie, and the comments were really not helping calm me down. You may not like this part, but I just decided to get off Reddit for a while and try to think through the situation on how to tell my wife. I felt that my wife treats Anna as family and just like her sisters. I have known my wife's sisters since they were in their early teens. I have had similar incidents happen with them all the time, and I never made a big deal out of it. There were so many times we had to tell them to keep their tops on when sitting in our backyard pool area when they were younger, and God knows how allergic they are to wearing pants around the house. However, I just treat them as they are my sisters. I decided I need to do the same with Anna and treat her like my wife's sisters. I also wanted to communicate that clearly to both Anna and my wife so they don't get in such uncomfortable situations anymore. That night, I was talking to my wife and decided to put a positive spin on the incident that happened early in the morning. I asked my wife if she noticed anything different with Anna. I told her that she woke up early with me today and greeted me with a hug and kiss and also helped me make breakfast. I told her that I am glad she finally looks happy and is returning back to her old self, and how proud I am of my wife that she is such a kind-hearted person who helped a friend in need. My wife seemed happy with my comment and started saying that she also noticed Anna was chattier in the morning and was cleaning her room and talking about applying for jobs again. I told my wife that I feel Anna is like one of her sisters and I'm happy she also considers us as family and is comfortable around us. The next few weeks were great. Anna started waking up early in the morning around the time I woke up, 5 a.m. We always had coffee together and had nice chats. She also helped me with breakfast and getting lunch boxes ready. She asked me if she can join my gym and if I can teach her some resistance training exercises. Her therapist told her it would be good for her to work out. So, we started going to the gym 3-4 times a week in the evening before picking my son from daycare. It's nice to have a regular gym partner and someone to geek out about the daily protein intake. I also told her when we were cooking that she is so much less annoying than my Sills and I wish she was my Sill. She just smiled at the comment. Anna has already had a few interviews and also contacted her old job who seem interested in hiring her back. She told us 2 weeks ago that she will be looking for apartments. We already saw 2 apartments in our suburb and hopefully should finalize that soon. My wife jokingly told her that her dating prospects are going to be bleak if she stays in our suburb, but Anna told us that she is going to stay away from relationships at least for a while now and work on herself. Plus, she enjoys our gym and loves spending time with our son. About the hugging and kissing, I think I have decoded it. A hug from Anna is normal and I get one every morning. However, I think she kisses people on the cheeks as a way to say thank you. Things are really looking positive for Anna and we are very happy that she was able to get through a bad patch in her life. She had isolated herself from everyone after the incident 7 months ago. However, she plans to join my wife and son on her summer trip to my in-laws in a few weeks, unless there are any updates on the employment front. I just hope for the best for her and I'm glad that I did not make a big deal out of the situation. I am also glad to have such a kind and understanding wife who is there for her friend in need. Relevant comments. Comment 1. If this works out for you guys, that's great. For me it's such a huge red flag, that she wakes up same time as you, joined the same gym as you and wants to spend a lot of time with you plus is looking at places to rent near you. Maybe it's because I've seen too many stories like that end in a horrible way. Again, if it works out for you guys it's great, to me it's one red flag after another and seems like a start of something fishy. Comment 2, I felt uncomfortable reading how much she's inserted herself in your life. There's still red flags waving and you're either stupidly oblivious or you're enjoying the attention that you choose to be oblivious to. Comment 3, you honestly still don't see it, do you? Waking up early at the same time as you, going to the gym with you and cooking with you. She's spending an awful lot of time with you. And the difference is she isn't one of your SILs but your wife's friend. A friend that has a past going after married men. You sound naive to not at least put down some fucking boundaries with her. I don't even get why you won't do that. It's so stupid. On every post people kept warning you and you refused to listen. I hope for your wife's sake, that Anna doesn't try anything. But remember that if she does and your marriage dies because of it, you and your unwillingness to handle it, will be the sole fucking reason. Comment 4. Oh sure, this is going to end well. We won't do the immediate attack head on because he won't fall for that. So we do the slow build. A little bit here, a little more there. As soon as she gets her own place, things are going to change. I don't understand how people cannot see what is happening in front of their eyes. Poor dude is going to be in her bed and wondering what happened. Comment 5. I have no dog in this fight and I'm wildly uncomfortable with how much Anna has inserted herself into your life and your daily routine and how you have let her do so. It does not come across as innocent, she has no reason to hug or kiss you ever. Why is the apartment hunting a wee thing? Why are you talking down about your wife's relatives to this person? Why are you spending so much of your time every day with this woman? You are having an emotional affair with this woman. And it is not going to take much for it to turn physical and you will be back here saying you have no idea how this happened. You need to get back to doing these things with your wife and this woman needs to not be part of your life or you will be very sorry in the end. She knows exactly what she's doing and she is playing the long game. Oh, and now reading previous posts I see Anna has gone after married men before. OMG. You really can't be this clueless. After discovering my brother's wedding was fake and being excluded, our once close bond is shattered, leaving me heartbroken. Me, 30F, and my brother, 31M, have always been as close as twins. Our closeness is a foundation in our family. One of the true consistent relationships, obviously not in a weird way. When we fight, which is never or small fights, the whole family feels it and tries to fix it because of how unnatural it feels for everyone. He gave me away at my wedding. I named a child after him. We have matching tattoos. We talk on the phone almost every day. He started planning his wedding. He asked me to be a groomsman, while his friend, 35-ish F, would be his best man. Everyone thought this was odd because of his role at my wedding, and none of us really know/have met his friend. I expressed how it hurt my feelings and was met with, "My wedding isn't about you, okay? Fine, I'll do what you ask." During the planning he called me every day. We sent ideas. I helped with making stuff. I didn't mind. I decided early on to not focus on titles but just to make this day as amazing as possible for my brother. He asked me to be a flower fairy, because this was a gay child-free wedding. I agreed. During the process of shoe picking, him and the best man would shoot down all of my ideas. She would send very basic heels that were around $100. Heck no. I told her my budget was $45 for shoes, especially for plain gold heels. The wedding party all had a very mean girl mentality. I felt it from day one. There was the wedding party, and then me. I chalk this up to not really knowing them well and proximity. All of them live in a different state than me. They even went as far as saying the shoes I like were too slutty. They were the type of small heels that place up around your calf or around your ankle. After this I begged to come as a guest, so I could wear what I want and not feel this weird mean girl mod mentality from the rest of the wedding group. My brother says, "No way, I can't get married without you being by my side." I get to the state the wedding will be, and the first day I'm there I find out the best man had the bachelor party the night before I got there. Everyone from the wedding party was included aside from me. I let it go and focus on the wedding and doing my part. So, I slap on some wings, dance my way down the aisle and give my very first wedding speech. All goes well. The wedding was awesome until the drag show. Yes, they had a drag show at their wedding. During the show one of the queens comes on and basically announces that this was all fake because my brother and his partner had gotten married 1 year prior. I turned to the rest of the wedding party and asked, did they know? They did. They were at the real wedding. Everyone but me. I'm sitting there trying to process, and my mom, who gave them $3,000 for the wedding because they needed it, storms up to ask if I knew. I told her no, and she immediately switched to being supportive to me because of how bad the situation was. It's not about them already being married. They can do what they want. I myself spent over $4,000 on this wedding. Because I was coming from out of state I had to get a plane ticket. I paid for a week at an Airbnb. One night most of the wedding party stayed at the house I rented because they didn't have anywhere else to stay, and did not even offer to pay for any of it. The dress for the wedding. The fairy wings I handmade. All of it. I spent too much time and money on this wedding. But then I start to remember all of the lies. They got married. And 3 days after my brother was at my house while I gave birth to my last child because I always wanted him to be a part of my huge moments. He held my newborn, knowing he had just gotten married, and said nothing. They gaslight me saying I was crazy feeling left out. Him saying he can't get married without me. Lying to my face every single day for a year. Just, all of it. After realizing all of this I tried to leave without making any sense. His husband mockingly asked me if I was mad. I said I'd talk to them another day and they should enjoy their night. I was able to leave without anyone else at the wedding knowing I was upset. Before I could leave, the happy couple pulls me into a room. My brother is crying saying he didn't do this to hurt me. I keep it together. Say enjoy your night and we will talk another day. His husband says, oh, so there is something to talk about then. I repeat, we can talk another day. They ask me to brunch. I say I'll see if I'm up, ready for it when they go. The next morning I realize the whole wedding party and some guests are going to lunch. I choose not to go because I am not going to put myself in a situation where I am ganged up on. Again over my feelings about the wedding and wedding party. After that I left the wedding chat on Snap, which they were notified of. At this point it's the next morning and his husband starts blowing me and my friend, who was with me, up. We ignore and go about our day. I have not looked at or spoken to my brother since. Aside from short responses to get me to the airport the day I left. When I left I asked them to crop me out of the wedding photos as I didn't want to be associated with a fake wedding and I didn't want a reminder of how embarrassing it was and how stupid I looked. I told them I didn't want to speak to them again. My brother says nothing and his husband says you're a narcissist and I feel bad for the people who have to deal with you. Pretty sure narcissistic more aligns with tricking 100 people into coming to a wedding, some of the wedding that was paid for by other people. Just to tell everyone haha this was just a giant party for us. Joke's on you is probably more narcissistic than me reacting to the time, money, energy spent to attend a fake wedding. But, alright, lol, I just don't know where to go from here. I have them both blocked. There is a line in our family. My brother has not tried to fix it. He has the chance to show me what I meant to him. He did. And now I have to believe him. I'm going to try to update in sections. 1. I guess to answer if he is in an abusive relationship that really is up to each person to decide. I will not, and won't label him as abusive because I'm not in that relationship with them. My mentioning of the drag queens was because they are a part of the story. Hello, it was one of the queens that made the announcement. I'm not sure why some of you are taking that as me being anything phobic. Mentioning that somebody is gay, or that drag queens attended a wedding is a part of a story and it's factual. It's not anything phobic. Our family, as well as the new husband's family, have always been nothing but supportive and accepting. My mom has 2 kids who are very hurt. She could never hate my brother, but she definitely does not like the decisions that he has been making. She is doing her best to support her 2 children. Gay wedding. No kids allowed? 2 separate statements, lol. They definitely did not ban gay children from their wedding. LOL. I mentioned both of these things to explain why I was a flower fairy. No kids, flower girl. Fairy to go along with the gay dragon theme. Hello people. I proudly slap those wings on and dance my way down the aisle. That is definitely not anything phobic, lol. For those of you who are saying anything along those lines, you are definitely reaching and projecting. Using narcissistic when it actually does not apply to the person, in my opinion, is trying to weaponize more info in the comments top questions. For some reason, I cannot edit my post to add this, so hopefully most of you will see it. Me and my new husband, as far as I know, did not have any hard feelings going into the wedding. There was a time when they were dating that I expressed I didn't like the fact that my brother was working 2 jobs for a new husband to try to become a music producer. I watched my brother kill himself for years to try to support both of them while he sat around smoking weed in his studio, and ever since then new husband decided that I hate him, even though we have since squashed all of those issues when he got a job and started contributing. Even when we did not get along, I always made it very clear, if my brother loves you and I love you too. Both families have been very supportive. There's no homophobia or anything like that on either side. Is my brother in an abusive relationship? I don't know, I guess that's what each individual person would consider abusive. I don't want to label my brother's partner unfairly as abusive when I'm not in a relationship myself and my brother has never expressed feeling abused. I think if you consider this behavior manipulative and abusive, then that's up to your own discretion. However, I am not going to give anyone that label. I didn't decide this was a fake wedding. They did when they decided to announce in the middle of the ceremony that they were already married. They made it a fake wedding when they announced that it was fake. LOL. Hello. Russian bots, pushing propaganda. Okay people, I only mentioned the fact that there was a drag show at the wedding because that is a very uncommon thing. I found out that my brother had been married for a year and had been lying to my face via drag queen announcements. That is just stating the facts. That has absolutely nothing to do with the drag community, or how myself, or anybody else should feel about them. They were paid to do a job and they showed up and did what they were paid to do. I have no ill will towards anybody in any type of community. Those of you who are saying to me, mentioning them comes off as judgmental. For those of you who think it's weird that I did not mention that he was gay. Why is that weird? And why is that relevant to the story? LOL. The people who had their panties in a wad probably have more of an issue with the community than I do. Stop making this post about anything other than what it is about. At the end of the day, I am mourning the loss of my brother. I am mourning the relationship that I thought him and I had. And to be honest, based off of my perspective of our closeness, I am honestly questioning my own sanity. Do you generally spend hours talking to somebody, getting matching tattoos, planning a wedding, being at holidays and childbirth with somebody that you're not close with? At least on my end, I did not make up how close I was with my brother if it was not reciprocated, and he is a very good actor. And honestly, me questioning our closeness has been the most hurtful part about this entire experience. It's made me question if I'm crazy or not. Gay wedding, child-free, 2 separate statements. It was not a wedding where they did not invite gay kids. LOL. For anyone who reads it like that, you are extra weird. My brother is obviously gay and got married to a man. Therefore, it is a gay wedding. Children were not allowed to attend the wedding, therefore a child-free. 2 separate things, people. Both are okay. And I also want to say that I would never have slapped fairy wings on my back and danced down the aisle if I was not 100% supportive of them. Please stop trying to make this an issue other than 2 siblings having a falling out. Another comment. Okay, I feel like you are very much twisting the story. LOL. I did not make sure everyone knew I was leaving the wedding. I actually left very discreetly at almost midnight when the wedding was ending at 1 a.m. I did not make my brother cry. His husband kept trying to force a conversation that I asked respectfully multiple times to not have the night of the wedding so that way it would not ruin their day. I showed up in every single thing my brother asked of me. I took the bullying, and it kept my mouth shut for most of it after I was accused of trying to make the wedding about me. From that point on, I went out of my way to do everything I could to make his day as special as I could for him. Comment about her husband. Brother tried to contact my husband to ask how to pay back what I spent to come to the wedding. My husband said that he was not going to get involved. Brother tried to convince my husband that I was overreacting. My husband told brother that is absolutely not true and I have every right to be upset and what he did was bonkers. My husband very much has been supportive but also is very sad to see me and my brother fighting like this. Update 1. I'm going to do my best to put as much information as I can but it ends up really long and Reddit will not let me post. So I'm going to try to answer all of the questions and I'm going to paraphrase a lot. The update is, there is no update. Things are the same, they are still blocked. One suggestion was that I should write him a letter, which I actually did the day after this happened and I left it in his room. I laid out all of my feelings and described them in detail. How hurt I was. We had a 2-hour drive where he said absolutely nothing even after reading my letter. I did end up losing all of my manners when I landed and my husband informed me that he sent him a message basically saying that I was overreacting. I said a lot of things that I was not very proud of. At the end of the day I stand by my truth, and I stand by my perspective of what happened. Please stop trying to make this a phobia issue. Both families have been nothing but supportive. They represent themselves, not an entire group of people. Stop being so simple-minded. The mention of drag queens was only there because one of the queens announced that they had gotten married a year ago. Plus, how many times do you see a drag show at a wedding? If you read some imaginary undertone, that is definitely a you issue. Moving on. New husband in my opinion is not somebody that I would label as abusive. However, abuse is subjective. I think this more falls down to him being very emotionally immature. I am not a yes man, I was for the wedding. That's an appropriate time to be a yes man. Outside of that, new husband has always been intimidated by my opinion. I think he knows I can see through his BS. Weak men hate strong women. That's a fact. And that's the case here. However, we did not have any type of beef on the wedding day. Or for years before. I made it clear that if my brother loves you and wants to spend his life with you then I support that. My mom is trying her best to be as supportive as she can to both of her kids. She could never hate my brother, although she absolutely hates what he did. As far as I go, I don't know who I am without my brother. He was just as important to me as my children and my husband. It was always me and him. To say that I am mourning is an understatement. This whole situation has made me question a 30-year relationship. Realizing his capability to live a double life that I'm not a part of has rocked to my entire world in my entire sense of reality. I'm not okay. I'm going to spend the next year being no contact. I'm going to go to therapy and get my mind, body and soul in the best place possible. While pushing as much good karma into the world as I can. Maybe then I will be able to decide if I want to close that door fully and permanently, or if I'm at a place where I'm willing to create a new normal with him. At the end of the day, I am absolutely devastated and heartbroken. I also want to address frequently asked things. 1. Baby was no fear of being overshadowed. The date that they got married was because it was a dating anniversary for them, nothing to do with me or my pregnancy. 2. I am aware that people get married and have a large ceremony later. That's okay. It's not what they did, it's how they did it. 3. I am not a Russian bot trying to push propaganda lol. Those comments did make me laugh though. 4. If I had the answer to why they would feel comfortable doing this to me then I guess I wouldn't be as dumbfounded as I am. I'm not leaving out any type of detail. Honestly, it would be a lot easier if I did something so horrible to deserve this because then I wouldn't have to wonder why. I'd know. At the end of the day I'm not okay. I don't know if there's anything he could do to fix this. I'll always wonder if he's telling me the truth or what he's hiding. After the way that his husband spoke to me, and after him allowing him to do that, I'm honestly so disgusted with both of them. I deleted the original post because I didn't want them to be attacked. Sadly, I still have a need to try to protect him. I don't know you guys. The brother-in-law appeared and made a comments in the original post. Brother-in-law here, I'll just start by saying for one, having a big wedding ceremony 1 year later was not my idea, but once we decided that we were going to do it, we consulted many times about telling people beforehand for fear of things like this happening. I've never had a great relationship with Op, but we've tried to make things work mostly for my husband, her brother, because I knew they were very close and I wasn't too fond of her due to our interactions in the past. I know how important those close relationships are and would never wish to tear that apart. Op didn't want to talk about it at all, We tried to apologize and explain that the intention was never for any humiliation or insult to anyone at all. But she wouldn't have any conversation about it, especially the night of. The next day at the Airbnb I tried to open a dialogue with Op about how she was feeling, and she only responded with snark and comments about how there's nothing to talk about. That's the small conversation where the "so there is something to talk about" statement was said by me. I eventually let it be and left the room. Everything that was said by her didn't help me or anyone understand really how she felt about it, and the little she did say seemed very self-centered and about how this was a plan to humiliate her specifically, which it most definitely was not. Reading through this now though, I do understand a bit more why she felt that way. And for that I truly am sorry. Anyway, I'm not entirely sure how these work or if there's a proper way to post this, but ask me anything. Reply. All I'm going to say is, you both are married now and you made your choice. You both are a partnership. You both collectively decided to do this and decided it was a good idea, and the consequences are, I want nothing to do with either one of you ever again. That's it. There is no reason or purpose to keep having an open dialogue about this because it's done. And you starting out your post with "you don't like me" pretty much confirmed everything that I said. I wish you and him nothing but happiness, but this conversation is over. I've heard your side of things and it still isn't good enough to justify what you both did. And I'm choosing to walk away from both of you. Another reply. He admits in the text above he knew. He literally says we didn't want to tell people because they were there and happy. He knew what he was doing. It was a huge manipulation. Lying to people to get what you want is manipulation. Omitting things from people to not give them the power to make a fair choice is also very much manipulation. They knew what they were doing. In the sentence the other people said, brother doesn't value sister the same way. That's it. That's the end of the argument. They both showed me exactly what I meant to them. The motivation behind it is not really important anymore. Maybe this was just a total oversight and a mistake, but regardless, the result was the same. And the consequence remains the same. I want nothing to do with y'all. I wish you happiness because I will always love you. If you make him happy, then I am so happy for the both of you. Truly I am. Our relationship was the sacrifice for this day and you both decided to make it. I reacted to it and was trying to sort through my feelings by posting on this podcast. I did not expect for it to go viral, so for that I'm sorry. I did try to remove the post, but it was too late. I realized that you don't like me due to past interactions. And that's fine. So what I'm about to say won't matter. My heart is completely shattered. I'm literally going through a mourning process like someone died. Because that night the relationship N and I had did die. He has always been my person. He isn't now, and I've never felt more alone. I honestly don't know if I'm going to be okay. Both of your responses just confirm everything I said and everything I felt. You have your side, I have mine. But ultimately everyone is feeling the loss of me and N. This changes everything in the family. I'm going to continue to root for both of you. Always. But I am going to do it from my side of the world. In an emergency, either of you can call me and I'll be there. But outside of that, I am good with both of you. You don't like me, I'm out of your life now. You don't get to defer to Neva when it comes to me but want to orchestrate our conversation after he did what he did. You are not a safe place for me. Just like I'm sure you feel like I'm not either. You win. Go be with N. Go have a happy life. Update 2. If you're reading this, you're here because you're super invested in my family's tea. LOL. But really, I'm okay. I'm going to be okay, or maybe I won't. Either way, I am going to keep moving forward, and if you want to come along with me, you can follow me on TikTok. I'm not trying to be an influencer. I'm just going to use it as a diary/coping safe space. My name on there is Tukari, 29. New update. I wish I could be writing that my brother had begged for my forgiveness. Those things somehow managed to go back to how they were. But they haven't. Nothing with my situation has changed. The only thing they truly changed was my perception of someone I thought I knew. I know a lot of people can't understand because you're not close with a sibling. But this has been like a true death for me. And sometimes my grief is so big I don't know what to do with it. He hasn't reached out, he hasn't explained. He hasn't even cared if I'm being fully honest, and what a mindfuck that has been. To go from someone being as important to you as your husband and children, to them showing you over and over how little you do, and ever did mean to them. He has doubled down on the "I didn't do anything wrong and you're overreacting." Which is honestly just the biggest slap in the face. If someone can't admit they did something wrong, then they will never actually be sorry, and the chances of behavior repeating itself are sky high. A lot of you pointed out our relationship might have only been this important to me, and I think you all were right. For a long time I cried every day. I cried during the times we would normally talk on the phone, or when a song reminded me of him. And sometimes I've cried for no reason at all other than just feeling like there is a hole in me now. But I find myself crying less and less. And sometimes when I think of him, my first thought that follows will be, wow, it's been days since he has even crossed my mind. And I guess that's progress, right? I'm not crying every day anymore. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't still shedding tears. Tears he doesn't deserve, but they come anyway. Because that's the thing about unconditional love. It still exists even when the other person broke your heart. It doesn't go away. But sometimes the other person can just no longer have access to the unconditional anymore. We have spoken. Briefly. Over the phone during the holidays to deal with a family emergency involving another family member. It was pretty much all business. Everyone around us kept saying, "I'm so glad you guys are talking again." But we weren't talking again. We were just dealing with business. And I guess that's all the talking we will ever do again. At one point my husband chimed into our phone conversation and told him how much he misses him too, and he cried. I guess I forgot I wasn't the only one losing someone, but either way that doesn't change anything. My kids have not even noticed. He did try to send Christmas gifts to them through my mom, but only because I said something about him not acknowledging my son on his birthday. So is that all he'll ever be? Impersonal generic gifts that my kids get once a year? I told my mom to send them back and that they don't need a gift uncle. Honestly, they have enough of those on my husband's side. With that I also came to the realization that if you don't have a good respectful relationship with me, you absolutely do not get access to my children. And to be fully honest, he never really took that much interest in my kids anyway. I know he cares and loves them, but as far as a personal one-on-one relationship with them, let's just say the extent of how much he got to know them was always me telling him about them. So there really wasn't a deep pre-established relationship with any of my kids and him. And with him not being on good terms with me, or my husband, I'm not going to allow him access to my children. And I would honestly feel the same way and react to anyone this way. If someone shows you over and over again that they do not love and respect you, why would you allow them access to your kids? Especially if all they are is a gift once a year. I'm not healed. But I'm on my way. It's not better, but it's getting better. I feel I am suffering the consequences of someone else's actions. I was spiraling, but I am finding my new normal. I'll update again at the 1-year mark. Am I the asshole for telling my best friend I don't want to hear about her shitty boyfriend anymore? Hi Reddit, I am feeling really bad about this, and need advice. I, 23, have been friends with my BFF Kayla since we were 11. She is awesome and has supported me through some really tough times, and I have been there for her through a lot of shit too. We have never fallen out, and we always supported each other. Until now. Kayla has been with her boyfriend James for just over 2 years now. I liked him at first. He was good for her. He made her happy, so I was happy. But for the last year or so, every time I have seen or chatted to Kayla, all she has done is complain about him. Some of the stuff she has told me about him is super gross, and I have lost all respect for him, and in turn, I have started losing respect for her. She has also changed a lot since being with him. She used to want to travel the world, explore and experience new things. Now she never leaves her house and wants to be a stay-at-home mother by the time she's 25. It makes me sad to see. She has lost her sparkle. It all came to a head when we went for dinner for my birthday. She spent the whole night complaining about James, as always, telling me way too much personal stuff about him, as always, and just generally moaning. It was after we had finished our meal when I finally snapped and said I don't want to hear any more about her shitty boyfriend, because everything I advise her to do she just ignores and I have nothing left to say to her. I told her she should dump him if she hates him so much, and if she isn't going to dump him then to quit bitching about him all the time because I didn't want to hear it anymore. I had had quite a few glasses of wine and was just feeling super bummed because she made my whole birthday dinner about her and her stupid boyfriend. This was 5 days ago and she hasn't spoken to me since. I messaged her the next morning apologizing and asked her if we could meet up to talk about it, but she hasn't responded. Relevant comments. To a longer YTA comment. OP. Thank you for your comment. I do actually agree with you after reflecting. I haven't ever told her that I'm tired of her not taking my advice, and I have never asked her to not complain about him. This was the first time I had challenged her. I have always been very patient with her, and let her complain as much as she wants. This has left me feeling emotionally drained after every time I see her. I should have set boundaries in a calm and mature manner, when I was sober. I was just so annoyed that she made me an entire birthday meal about her relationship issues. I had also just found out that I had got my dream job, and wanted her to be happy for me. I took out my frustration on her and I spoke to her poorly. Thank you. I am going to try and fix it with her top commenter. I mean, you took the nuclear option and drunkenly exploded on her rather than having a civil conversation about how the constant complaining was impacting you and your friendship. Of course she's hurt and pissed off. Not to say she's free and clear of taking over your birthday, but she may honestly have no idea how much she complains or how draining it can be for others. The fact that you have lost respect for her means maybe it's time for the friendship to end. If you don't like her and you don't like being around her, what's the point of the relationship? Don't expect her to forgive you for handling the situation like you did instead of like a real friend would though. Alcohol ultimately didn't make you do this. Alcohol didn't make me do this. I did it because I didn't communicate sooner, and I had a lot of pent-up anger. I shouldn't have spoken to her like that and I'm going to apologize. Commenter, downvoted. You are the asshole. Get off booze and other drugs. I accept I'm the asshole, but if I want to have a few glasses of wine on my birthday, that is my prerogative. I don't do drugs, and I am over the legal drinking age. I had 3 glasses of wine. On my birthday. Commenter, NTA, the best thing you can do is let her be right now. When she's ready to talk she will reach out to you. I'm worried that if I let her be, she will never reach out and I will lose her as a friend. I don't want to lose her, despite her frustrating me with constantly talking about her boyfriend. She is a good person. I was thinking of writing her a letter to apologize and explain how I feel. IDK. Commenter, a letter may be a good idea, especially if she has blocked you on social media or is avoiding your messages. Do you have any mutual friends willing to tell Kayla how you feel? She hasn't blocked me, but she has already ignored one message, so I feel like she would just keep ignoring me. All of our mutual friends have dropped her because they can't deal with her complaining. They're all telling me to unfriend her, but I'm not ready to do that. Commenter. Is the relationship just bad, or is it abusive? Not acting like her usual self, her spark is gone. Those are red flags. If it is an abusive relationship, and emotional abuse very much is abuse, then make sure to leave the door open for her to contact you when she's ready to leave. Abusers isolate and control their victims, and cutting off friends and family is part of the goal. If the support system is gone, it's harder to leave. So tell her that you will always be there for her if she decides to leave him. That does not mean you have to keep listening to her. Tell her that you are done hearing about this guy and set whatever boundaries you need, but tell her that when she is ready to leave him, you are there for her. It isn't abusive. If anything, she's not very nice to him. She doesn't like the guy. I don't know why she stays with him. She struggles with her mental health, and he is a very lazy guy, so encourages her to stay in bed all day. He isn't what she needs, but he isn't abusive. Who paid for dinner? I paid. It did need to be said, but not in the way it was. I want to apologize for the way I say it, not for how I feel. Commenter. So let me get this straight. Your best friend of 12 years goes to your birthday dinner empty-handed and you pay for it. She spends the whole night making it about herself and her stupid BF, and it got you to the point of yelling at her, rightfully so, and now she's giving you the cold shoulder. This girl is not your friend, she's a user. This is not a friendship worth having. IDC what financial situation is. If it's your BFF birthday, you make it work. It's not about money, it's about effort. If she truly couldn't afford to go out, then she could have made you dinner and a birthday cake and bought a $2 bottle of wine. Yeah, I guess that's true. I told her not to get me anything because she's broke. I wasn't expecting anything, but I was expecting her to at least ask me how I am, instead of just talking about her boyfriend. IDK Update 1. Edit. Thank you all for your comments. I can see you're all very divided about if I'm the asshole or not, and I get why. I have accepted that I am the asshole for going nuclear when drunk, and I know I should have spoken to her in a mature and calm manner way earlier than I did. She shouldn't have ruined my birthday dinner, but she is struggling. She didn't deserve to be spoken to like that. I have decided to write her a letter apologizing for the way I spoke to her. I am going to write, very nicely, that I still stand by what I said and that I love her, but hearing her complain repeatedly about the same issue without taking advice is very draining. I'm going to tell her I want to still be friends and that I don't want this to ruin our friendship. I will also recommend she goes back to therapy. She had a therapist in high school but ghosted her. If she then reads my letter and decides to end the friendship, then that is up to her. I will be sad, but everything happens for a reason. Right. Update 2. Firstly, thank you so much for everyone who commented and messaged me. Nice or not, it was great to get everyone's opinion. So I wrote Kayla a letter, like I said I was going to in my edit. It felt very formal and weird to do, but for some reason doing it over text felt wrong. I wanted her to know I'm sincere. I said that I love her, and I value our friendship extensively, and apologized for the way I spoke to her. I said alcohol wasn't to blame. I was. I spoke to her like an asshole and she didn't deserve it. I wrote that I have felt frustrated about the situation for a long time now, because it upset me seeing her so frustrated and upset all the time with the person who is supposed to cherish and respect her the most. I told her that I wholeheartedly believe that she should end the relationship. I said I knew this wasn't my place to say, and that she didn't need to take my advice, and that I would support her in whatever decision she made. But if she decided to stay with him, I need her to stop complaining to me about James and their relationship, because it was too draining for me to hear it. I said of course she could talk to me about anything major, but hearing the same complaints on an almost daily basis was exhausting, especially when she wouldn't take or even listen to any advice. I made sure to tell her I loved her, and I apologized again. I actually apologized 4 times in the letter. I put it through her front door the day after I posted here. She called me yesterday and asked to meet. I went round to her place last night and we talked for just over 2 hours. She told me she actually broke up with James the day after my birthday. Apparently me snapping at her about it shocked her into realizing how often she was upset by him and how much she complained. She has spent the last few days processing everything, so that's why I hadn't heard from her, which is so valid. She actually thanked me for doing it, which is crazy. She said although I was a bit of an asshole, it was what she needed to hear. We both cried a lot and hugged it out and then watched 90 Day Fiancé LOL. I think it's safe to say we will be okay. She is obviously struggling because she is grieving their relationship and breakups are awful. But I will support her through this, like I always do, because I know that she will support me when I next get my heart broken. I am single AF right now, but who knows what the future holds. So the TLDR is that me snapping at my best friend at my birthday dinner for complaining about her boyfriend for the whole meal caused her to dump him. I didn't lose the friendship, I actually got my best friend back. I can't wait to support her while she finds herself again. Thank you all again, have a great day everyone.
Am I the A for defensively responding, I'm sorry I was born this way, when my natural afro was accused of cultural appropriation by friends? I am a 19-year-old female. I am also a Caucasian person, which I think is relevant. I have a natural afro, similar to a Jufro or something like that. I am not exaggerating when I refer to it as an afro. It is a big round puffball of curls from my head. I have a friend group, and almost all of us knew each other in high school. I am not sure exactly how relevant this detail is, but almost everyone in the group is a person of color. We get together every once in a while, and the last time we met up, the topic of cultural appropriation came up. Topics like this are not unusual for us, as we sometimes talk about political or societal issues. We all have the same left-wing beliefs, so it is easy for us to talk about these things. In the discussion about cultural appropriation, afros specifically came up. I did not think much of it for a while, as it makes sense to me that someone mimicking the hairstyle of people of color would be offensive. I did not really contribute to the conversation except for nodding along, as I agree with what they say but cannot really add to it since I am white. At some point in the conversation, I started to feel like people were looking at me. Not like conversational looks but more like looking me up and down before glancing away and repeating. I brushed this off, as I have had issues with social anxiety since I was little, so most of the time when I feel insecure, I figure it is just my anxiety bursting through my medication to bite me in the butt. However, after a few minutes of feeling this way, one friend commented on how weird it was that I have my hair in an afro despite being white. All of my friends are well aware that my hair is completely natural, and I do not do anything to get it this way, so I was taken aback. A few other people chimed in, saying things like I should straighten it, and that I was adding to racial tension and making people see me and think it is okay to appropriate afros. I snapped and said, I am sorry I was born this way. I was using a loud tone, which I am not proud of, as I am very averse to anything that resembles yelling. I would not say I yelled, but I was speaking noticeably louder than the volume we had maintained. Some of my friends looked disappointed, while others looked kind of disgusted, and they all just left after that. If anything, I think I am the asshole for how I responded, but I am also asking if I am the asshole for having my hair like this. I would talk to other friends or family about this, but I am worried about them being disappointed in me. Any advice is appreciated. Update. Kind of. Thank you to all of you who commented, which by now is a surprising amount. I appreciate all of the advice you gave. I am still trying to get through all the comments and have not even begun to try to respond to any of them. I am not entirely sure if this counts as an update. I have spent a while mulling over the advice. An overwhelming number of you suggested that I stop considering these people friends, along with a lot of people who suggested that they may have never been friends in the first place. Reading responses has given me a new perspective on this, as I came here expecting to be the asshole but wanting more of a view of why and to what extent. To get it straight off the bat, I do not want to stop being friends with these guys unless it really comes down to it. I do not think this stems from prejudice or malice as some people believed. I think it rather came from ignorance and misunderstanding. I am going to reach out to them in the coming days and try to explain my renewed view and maybe even share some of the comments with them. These are people I have known for years. We have helped each other through dark times and celebrated good times. If they are completely unreceptive, then I do not think we will remain friends, but I do not want to lose these people over something that can be worked out. My hope is that we can work through this and be better for it. Thanks especially to people expressing concern for my well-being and their views on similar matters. Even bigger thanks to those who expressed concern for my hair's well-being and the idea to use hair products made for people of color. For some reason that I can only attribute to sheer lack of attention to my hair and its health, I had never really considered this. When I think about it, I am coming out of this with friendship tips, worldview tips, and hair tips. I suppose more than anything right now, I am just tired. I feel like I need to just curl up in my bed for 3 days, but this is a bump in the road that I wish to overcome. I highly doubt I will update this. I decided not to post this on my main account so it would not be associated with browsing on this site for obvious reasons. I will try to get back to at least some comments. I guess more than anything, this update is just to say thanks for caring enough to give me advice, whether it was a single word or 3 paragraphs. Some comments that were donated and had many votes. Firstly, one commenter shared their experience. I'm black and went to a majority white all-girls school in the US. There was a white girl who had extremely thick and tightly wound hair. She hated it because she didn't know what to do with it. On a good day she wore it in a ponytail, but it was never combed through, and no one in her family knew what to do with her hair. I didn't really know her, but could see how thick her hair was. Years later I ran into her getting her hair done at a black salon. She said she had been coming here since college. Only the ignorant will accuse you of trying to be someone you are not. But FYI, go to a black hair salon, they will hook you up. In response, another person shared their positive experience with black hairstylists. OMG this. 100 score for the second I started working with a black hairstylist, my hair game changed completely. I had the most uneven haircut in my entire life, and she was like, yeah, because they wet your hair completely, and then comb it straight, then cut it. Also she changed my hair routine, wash schedule, products used, and how to refresh it. I used to think I could only have nice hair on wash days. Now I have nice hair 75% of the time. Additionally, another commenter mentioned their surprise at learning about haircuts. Oh my god, you just blew my mind. I'm a white male but I wear my hair long and it's naturally very curly. Oh, I had been wondering why my haircuts always left me disappointed. I didn't even realize that the stylist wetting my hair before, combing it straight, and cutting it was adding to the problem. I've been avoiding getting haircuts for a while now because they always turn out like crap. I'm definitely going to see if I can find a black stylist in my area to do my next haircut. Moreover, someone else shared their experience with curly hair. Same. It is absolutely wild how many white people have absolutely no clue how to style curly hair. I say this as a white person with curly wavy hair. Afro-type C curls are rare unless you're Jewish, but wavy curly hair in general is pretty common. Yet it's so insanely rare to meet anyone who knows curly hair. I used to think my hair was just always fluffy and bushy like Hermione, and I just had to straighten it. Nope. I just have wavy curly hair, and no one in my family had any clue how to teach me to style it properly, despite a quarter of them also having curly or wavy hair. Furthermore, another commenter offered practical advice. My friend and her guy came over to visit. He was growing his hair out. It was a frizzy mess. I said, I have an oil-free moisturizer that will make your hair look wet when it's dry. He looked at her for approval and she said, of course. I put it on his hair and told him to only wash it once a week. His hair looked spectacular with just a small amount. The product was Carefree Curl Gold. Must be put on dry hair for the best results. When I bought some at Sally's, the woman behind me checking out said that was the same product her hairstylist sold her for $20. It was $5. Anyone with thick curly hair needs to check out Ethnic Hair Care products. You will be pleasantly surprised. In addition, another commenter shared their concern about haircuts. This is actually so important because I need a haircut and I didn't know that they could potentially damage my newly grown curls. I got a buzz cut like 3 years ago to help with my trichotillomania, and it's since grown in with perfect curling iron type curls. It's actually kinda insane how my hair curls as if styled just by air drying after a shower. I think I'd be devastated if I went to get the back so trimmed, then left with half my curls literally gone. I'd lose my mind. My hair is so important to me now. Next, someone firmly stated their opinion. Not the A. No one needs to change their natural self to please others. Another person found the situation bizarre. Yeah, this is bizarre. I can't imagine people genuinely telling someone that they need to straighten their hair to get rid of their natural hair texture to avoid cultural appropriation. It makes no sense and sounds like what people think liberals argue about, LMAO. Furthermore, another commenter explained, nah. I've known people like this. Some people are just dumb. It's an affectation of being of the age where you think you know everything because you haven't grown up enough to learn you don't know much, because the world is shades of gray. This isn't bashing any generation. It's a product of age and affects all generations. I roll my eyes at some of the things I adamantly crusaded about in my late teens and early 20s. In our first steps out alone in the world of new adulthood, we boil everything down to simple black and white to find our place in it. As we do, we start to see the layers and shades of gray. And believe me, when I was that age, nothing infuriated me more than someone older explaining this very thing. So I get that too. Someone else pointed out, having tightly coiled hair is not exclusive to black people. It's absolutely not cultural appropriation to wear your natural hair texture. Advocating that someone straightens their hair to reduce racial tension is exactly what the natural hair movement was advocating against. You are not the A. Another person found the friend's logic confusing. Wondering how they were discussing how people should not do something to their hair to avoid cultural appropriation but wanted her to do something to her hair so it does not look natural. OP is not the A. But can someone please make her friend's opinions make sense to me and possibly them? Moreover, another commenter clarified, the correct definition of cultural appropriation is when someone pretends to have created something that was created by people of another culture. The way it is used by most people is as a cudgel to take things from people over the color of their skin. In other words, cultural appropriation is being misappropriated by racists. Additionally, someone shared a strong opinion on the issue. Honestly, this is one of a few things I have strong feelings about. I feel that if cultural appropriation is used in this gatekeeping cudgel method, it will create more divisiveness in the long term, with people just not knowing as much about cultures in general. Most people experience new cultures, usually through food or clothing in the beginning, and if people start getting hesitant or nervous to try these new things, because they'll be judged as culturally appropriating them, it could really limit the growth of what people experience. And then when they get older, they have no experience of all these other cultures, so they just won't understand them, and it could lead to conflict. If you limit people from experiencing and understanding new cultures, you will end up creating intolerant people as they get older. Then, another commenter shared their personal experience. Exactly this. I have tight curls that I like to keep short, resulting in my hair being an afro. African Americans often refer to this style as natural. Guess what? It's natural for me too because that's what my hair does naturally. I would say something along the lines of, so you're allowed to have your hair natural, but I'm not. They need to get over themselves. Not the A at all. Finally, one commenter posted that OP is not the A. No one needs to change their natural self to please others. Relevant comments to the story. Firstly, one commenter shared their experience with their father's appearance and heritage. My dad's parents were born in Croatia. My dad had very dark skin. He tanned so dark that when he came to see me at a cheerleading practice, He was also the police chief in a small city, so well known. One of the other squad members, and this was a high school that was about 40% black, said, "I didn't know that your daddy wasn't white." He also had black hair, a prominent scimitar-style nose and blue eyes. That combination is very Turkish, and that's what he was often mistaken for. And, as I said, Croatia, which once had a significant Ottoman Empire presence as well as the Roman Empire. Edit to add, he also had very high cheekbones. Additionally, another commenter related to the situation. Exactly this. I have tight curls that I like to keep short, resulting in my hair being a fro. African Americans often refer to this style as natural. Guess what? It's natural for me too, because that's what my hair does naturally. I would say something along the lines of, "So you're allowed to have your hair natural. But I'm not?" They need to get over themselves. Not the A at all. Moreover, someone else shared their experience with classmates. "I went to school with people who had 4C hair, and they were white-skinned and freckled, and their hair was white. I felt sorry for the girl because she always used to hide her hair in a bun with tufts sticking out. She really had no idea how to care for her hair, and she really resented it. It was some genetic throwback. She would get asked all the time if she was albino, i.e. black, but she wasn't." Replying to the third comment, another person said, "Yeah, that girl is me. Luckily I learned to braid it after high school, but I tell hairstylists how thick my hair is, and they don't get it until it's an hour later and they're only halfway through. When my brother shaved his head, it grew back out in a fro. I was never able to confirm it but always joked it was a Jew fro. During the summer, I have to double French braid it, or it's a nightmare because of how frizzy it gets. It makes me angry hearing people of color being expelled from school or asked to change their hairstyles at work when they wear it naturally. OP needs new friends. They are idiots." Another commenter shared their experience with a black stylist. "My hair was ugly my whole life until I went to a black stylist. I'm whiter than radioactive mayonnaise, but my hair is very much not white people hair as my mom told me constantly growing up. My stylist is fantastic, also incredibly inclusive, and I never feel out of place there, and gave me the most fantastic cut I would have never ever chosen for myself. I would have thought it would look so bad on me, but they asked me if I was willing, and I said yes out of sheer frustration with what I'd been dealing with my whole life. I look so good now. My confidence is off the charts." Finally, another person shared their positive experience with a black hairstylist. "I'm a pale, pasty white girl. I always had straight, maybe wavy hair most of my life. But my hair has become curly as I get older. More big ringlets. I started going to my hair lady a few years ago. She's black and is absolutely amazing. My hair has never looked so amazing, and the curls are incredible. I love it. She is most definitely the reason my hair is in the good condition it is, and the curls are the way they are. Am I stupid for wanting to forgive and move on with our lives after my wife announced at her sister's wedding that she slept with the best man? My wife informed me at her sister's wedding that she had slept with the best man. The timing is crucial here. We have been married for 3 years and were together as a couple for 2 years before that, making it a total of about 5 years. 2 weekends ago her sister got married and naturally, my wife was part of the wedding party. As expected, she spent the 2 weeks before the wedding helping her sister with all the preparations. It was no big deal, she kept me updated, and I knew this was going to happen. She took that Wednesday to Friday off work to assist her sister and stayed with her for 3 days. I certainly know her sister, but I barely know the guy who is now my brother-in-law. In fact, I have only met him a few times, but he seems nice enough. I showed up Saturday morning a few hours before the ceremony, hoping to steal a few minutes to see her. Not wanting to intrude on the day since I knew she was busy, but I hadn't seen her since Tuesday. She saw me outside her parents' house and sent her brother out to tell me that she would come out and see me in the car, which I thought was odd, but whatever. She finally came out, sat in the seat next to me and gave me a kiss. Instead of acting happy to see me, she told me that she had to talk to me and didn't want to ruin her sister's day. She informed me that at the reception, if I still wanted to go, I might hear some things about her and the best man, and she didn't want it to be awkward or weird. I just kind of sat there stunned. She explained that about 4 years ago she had a fling with him and while it didn't mean anything, She knew that I'm somewhat jealous by nature and wanted me to know in advance so that if I heard something, I wouldn't be surprised. Again, I just kind of sat there. This was not how I thought my morning would go, but I told her I appreciated knowing it and that it certainly wasn't a big deal now. She went back into the house, and I went to eat lunch and decided to meet her at the church. As I was eating and checking my phone, a realization hit me. She mentioned having a fling with him 4 years ago, yet we have been together for 5 years. Initially, I wanted to dismiss it, thinking she might have just made a mistake with the timeline, but the more I thought about it, the more memories started coming back to me. About 1.5 years into our relationship, she went through a phase where her behavior was quite suspicious. She wasn't available when she usually would be and went on 2 weekend camping trips with friends from work. Naturally, this made me feel uneasy, but I knew I had a long day ahead and tried to push those thoughts aside. I arrived at the wedding and watched everything unfold. After the ceremony, there was a line where guests walked by to congratulate the bride and groom, with the wedding party standing in line as well. My wife was standing next to a guy I didn't know, but the best man was also there. I walked down the line, acting like everything was fine. At the reception, it took a long time for the wedding party to arrive due to the photo session. When my wife finally got there and sat with me, I chose not to mention anything, not wanting to create a distraction on such an important day. However, instead of leaving it be, she informed me that each groomsman and bridesmaid would be dancing together, and she would be dancing with the best man. I asked why, given that she wasn't paired with him in the wedding party. She explained that the maid of honor and her partner were married and wanted to dance together. At this point I was more than just a little irritated, but I tried to keep my feelings in check. I knew better than to drink, as I tend to get angry when intoxicated. She chatted with everyone around her, and then the time for the dance arrived. The best man came over, extended his arm, and she got up to dance with him. I made a conscious effort not to watch them and focused on other things instead. When she returned with him, they were laughing and joking like the best of friends. She decided to introduce us, and while I didn't tell him to get lost as I felt like doing, my greeting was probably less than friendly. However, this did not stop him from sitting down and talking with her for a few minutes. The more they chatted and reminisced about the past, the angrier I became. Eventually, I got up and went to the bathroom, and when I came back, he was gone. She chose that moment to tell me that she thought I was being rude, which was the last thing I wanted to hear. I told her that this wasn't the appropriate time or place for this discussion, but we would definitely talk later. She then said she was going to change clothes, and as soon as she returned, she was planning to tell her sister that we were leaving because I had ruined her day. However, she didn't want me to ruin her sister's day as well. I assured her that I was perfectly capable of not causing any trouble for her or her sister for the rest of the day and that I did not want to create any drama, so I preferred to stay. She went to change clothes and came back looking annoyed. Understand? I had not said a word to her, and I even shook the other guy's hand. I guess I just looked miserable, which is what she based her reaction on. She was adamant about not staying, so I said that if she really wanted to leave, we could go. But if she preferred to stay, I would be happy to stay too, or if she liked, I could leave since I had my own car. Initially, she said we should stay, but then she changed her mind and said if I couldn't behave better, I should leave. I asked how I was acting, and she said it was clear I was trying to act like a silverback gorilla ready for a fight. I didn't know whether to laugh at her or be offended. I went back inside and sat down while she mingled with the other guests. I talked with her brother for a while but eventually ended up back at our table talking with her grandma. We left at the same time, and I arrived home just before she did. I was sitting in the living room waiting for her when she came in, and she did not beat around the bush. I simply asked her to retell me the story about this other guy, and she repeated it word for word as before. After sitting and looking at her for a while, I asked if she was sure about the time frame, and she confirmed she was. I then reminded her that we had been together for 5 years, so this fling was well over a year into our relationship. What happened next is hard to describe. Instead of being flustered or denying it, she simply said she knew. So I asked her to explain, and she told me that they worked together and it was just a physical thing. She felt that we weren't in a great place at the time, and she never had any feelings for him or any real intention of leaving me. She was just having some fun for a few weekends. She admitted that it was probably a mistake on her part to tell me now, but she didn't want me to be blindsided. I did not react the way she anticipated. We had a huge argument, which ended when she accused me of being childish about the whole situation. She insisted that because we are now married, what happened before our marriage shouldn't affect our current life together. I vehemently disagree. First, her infidelity affects us profoundly, and she doesn't even show any remorse. Second, I despise being called childish when I get upset. It feels like she's trying to assert superiority over me. I told her I needed time to process everything, but she dismissed it, claiming there was nothing to think about since we love each other and this doesn't change anything. That conversation happened 2 weeks ago and I'm still not over it. She has been trying to talk to me over the past few days, but I find myself unable to see her the same way. Part of me thinks it's irrational to be this upset over something that happened years ago, but another part of me is deeply hurt by the revelation of her infidelity. Update. At her sister's wedding, my wife told me she had slept with the best man. The maid of honor, not my wife, was married to the groomsman who walked my wife down the aisle. Some people speculated that my wife was trying to arrange the dance, but I know for certain that part was genuine. However, this doesn't mean she didn't offer to let them dance or engage in other manipulative behavior. I wanted to clarify that part. Recent developments have only made my decision-making process more difficult. Last week, I felt mostly angry, but as the weekend went on, I became more sad. I want to hate her and flip the switch that tells me I'm being taken advantage of, but it's tough because I still love her, and this situation is tearing me apart. Here's what happened next. She eventually realized that I wasn't going to simply get over this, which made her understand that I might want to leave the marriage. This realization almost caused her to have a nervous breakdown. Someone from my first post suggested she might try to manipulate me, and I took that warning to heart. Initially, I thought she was shedding crocodile tears, but it soon became clear that she wasn't faking. She was having a real panic attack. This led to an emergency room visit, an overnight hospital stay, new medications, and a follow-up appointment with her doctor next week. Her family got involved, leading to lengthy discussions all around. When we got home with her family, I asked what she wanted to do, given the full house. She said she wanted to be with her mom for a while, which was fine with me as I had no desire to spend the day with her dad or sister. So I decided to finish up some work and return home later. 2 hours after I arrived, I got a text from her, pleading for me to come home and saying she desperately needed to talk. So I wrapped up what I was doing and headed back. When I got to my front porch, her dad was there, asking if he could have a word with me. Already feeling quite angry, I was prepared to confront him if she had filled him with lies. While we weren't best friends, I had never had any issues with him, so I wasn't keen on being the one who broke his daughter's heart. We sat down on the deck chairs, and his opening statement completely caught me off guard. I expected anything but what he said next. He revealed that she had told them what had happened and he wanted to apologize to me because he felt like he had failed as a parent. He believed that her mindset was largely influenced by her mother. Although he loved both of them, he admitted they were wrong. He had warned his wife years ago that teaching their daughters that anything before marriage didn't count was a terrible idea and a flawed value system. He clarified that he wasn't defending his daughter's actions but wanted me to understand that she genuinely believed marriage was an entirely separate chapter of life. He said her mom and dad had romanticized marriage so much that she struggled to grasp the realities of life. Essentially, he was placing some blame on his wife, but this was far from what I anticipated. We shook hands, and he told me that no matter what I decided, he still held me in high regard, which genuinely made me feel better for the moment. I then went inside, and my wife was curled up in a ball on her mom's lap, and you could tell she had been crying the entire time I had been gone. Her mom got up, came, hugged me, and told me she was sorry and that she loved me and was praying that we could work this out. My wife was laid out on the couch at this point. Her mom and dad left, and she sat there looking at me and crying. Okay, this is where I'm going to piss off everybody and just tell you that I couldn't take it. I went to her, and we hugged for a long time with her telling me over and over how sorry she was. Hey, I know it was the weak thing to do, but again, I have to say in my defense that just before this incident occurred, I loved her with all of my heart and would have done anything to not see her in pain. Whatever she had done, I still didn't want to see her like that. Look, it's very possible that she was putting on an Oscar-worthy acting job, but I don't honestly think so. She really seemed broken at that point in time. After a while, when she calmed down, I asked her what she wanted me to come home and talk about, and she said she wanted to get everything out in the open so I didn't feel like I was being lied to or manipulated. She wanted me to ask her questions, and I wish I had written down a list, but I came up with a few off the top of my head. She was brutally honest with me, and some of the questions I asked I probably shouldn't have because now the mental image is stuck in there, but honestly, it was there anyway. I just now have confirmation. First, I asked for dates or at the very least approximate dates. I didn't tell her about the engagement concern I had because I didn't want her to change stories, and she remembered exactly when they occurred. Fortunately, this happened a little earlier in our relationship than she told me initially, so we were not engaged when this happened. I can't tell you what a relief that was because I became physically ill when I thought about that when someone said it in my last post. Second, I asked how many times she went overboard with this because instead of just telling me how many different dates, she decided to tell me how many times there was intimacy. She wasn't doing it to be mean. She honestly thought that is what I wanted to know. This part of the conversation did not help me at all and, in fact, almost broke me down. In truth, it wasn't that often, and in fact, there were really only 3 different days that it happened on, but there were several times during those 3 days. Then came the difficult part that was understanding why she did it. Admittedly, I'm not the most masculine man, and it pains me to say this, but I couldn't ask without breaking down into tears. I questioned why I wasn't enough, why she chose him, and why she didn't just leave me. At that moment, it was her turn to comfort me because everything hit me all at once. Her confession, witnessing their interactions, and now learning the details of their affair. She spoke during this, but I couldn't process her words. I was too upset, and honestly, nothing she could say would make a difference. After regaining my composure, I told her that the betrayal was terrible, but her reaction when I found out was just as bad, if not worse. She agreed and apologized for calling me immature. She genuinely believed that it wouldn't matter to me now because we were married. Hearing this made my blood boil again. I was about to respond, but she interrupted, saying that after discussing with her parents, she realized how wrong she was and acknowledged that cheating is cheating. However, she still felt that the happiness we shared since getting married should mean something. I responded that I felt like that happiness was built on a lie. This led to another breakdown for her, nearly resulting in another ER visit, but between Ativan and breathing into a paper bag, we managed to calm her down. I let her sleep the rest of the night, feeling emotionally exhausted myself. However, by Sunday, we were talking again. By this point, I wasn't as understanding as I had been when we returned from the ER. I told her that introducing him to me was terrible. Having to watch her dance with him was even worse, and the fact that she only confessed because she was about to get caught was the worst of all. I then asked why she thought I would find out and how many people at the wedding knew besides me. Clearly, the guy knew, but his best friend, who is now my brother-in-law, also knew. This led to her sister finding out, and she feared her sister would be the one to tell me. I asked how often she saw this guy and she said the wedding was the first time she had seen him in 3 years. I lost my temper and asked if she met him at any point leading up to the wedding. She got defensive, acting as though she wouldn't have slept with anyone because she was married. I was so frustrated that I had to leave for a while, feeling like she was living in a completely different reality. After cooling off enough to return home and attempt to be civil, she asked what she could do to help me get past this. Although it may not sound like much, it was the first time she genuinely offered to help, so it was a nice gesture. I told her I wasn't sure what she could do or if there was anything either of us could do to fix this, and that I might never get over it. She said she wanted to help because she didn't want to see me in pain and hoped that over time, I would judge her based on who she is now. She promised to do anything I needed to work this out. She also wanted to assure me that she had been entirely faithful since we got married and would never cheat on her vows. I sarcastically thanked her, which I admit wasn't the most mature reaction. I then asked for a break from further discussions until at least Wednesday. I have 2 projects I need to complete, and honestly, I'm exhausted and unsure of what to do. I fluctuate between intense anger, where I want to kick her out, and deep emotional pain where I want to forget everything and move forward with her. Yes, I know this is not what anyone wanted to hear, and no, I'm not proud to type it, but it is what it is at the moment.
Am I the asshole for returning to my career to escape the overwhelming responsibility of caring for my husband's autistic niece? My husband, 30M, Became the legal guardian to his sister's daughter, 17F, 2 months ago. She lost her single mom last year. My in-laws took her in but they were too old. That was when my husband became her legal guardian despite my concerns. He told me that he would take care of her completely. We got married a year ago after 15 years of dating. I had a very successful career in a very physically and mentally demanding field. I had to travel a lot. We wanted to start a family and I agreed to be a stay-at-home mom. I quit my job a few months into the marriage when I got pregnant. Sadly, I had a miscarriage. Then his sister died and everything is on hold. In the meantime, I took a part-time job in a related field which allows remote work so that I am not bored out of my mind. My SIL was a nurse. She quit her job to take care of her daughter full-time. Her daughter has a variety of issues including nonverbal autism, a series of development disorders like dyslexia and severe sensory issues. My husband says that he does most of the work. But he doesn't. Since I am working from home part-time, most of the caretaking falls to me. She gets angry and has meltdowns all the time. She doesn't like the food I make and most of the time she ends up throwing food at the floor or at me. I am at my wit's end and it is just so emotionally exhausting. Around December 15th, my husband was working late and asked me to take care of dinner. She is very picky about food. The slightest change in texture or taste from what she is used to can cause a meltdown. She threw the plate at my feet and I ended up bleeding. At that point, I called my husband and asked him to be home ASAP. He said he wouldn't be able to. I went up to my room and told him I'm not dealing with this anymore. He came hours later and she was still crying. He was absolutely furious at me. He called him heartless and irresponsible. I told him I've had enough of both of their ungrateful behavior and told him that I'm going to my mom's and I wouldn't be back until New Year's. He panicked and tried to apologize but I left. He called me every day asking me to come back. I finally came back and he told me that my stunt had forced him to all available leaves to stay home with her. He told me that he was glad I was back. I told him that I contacted my former company and got my old job back and it starts next Monday. It is in office and requires a lot of travel. He asked me who was supposed to stay at home as she cannot be left alone, he has no more leaves and full-time caretakers are too expensive. I told him he promised to take care of everything when he became her guardian and that it was his problem. As you can guess, my family supports me and his family thinks I am being extremely selfish. So I'm asking for judgment from impartial strangers. AITA in this situation. Update. Lot of people were messaging me for an update. So, here goes. I wish I could say things got better. My husband took a few days off to interview special needs nanny caretakers. He ended up finding a good and experienced person to take on the job. He hired her for 6 weekdays. One day, she ended up saying she cannot make it for a couple of days due to an emergency. My husband had a meeting he couldn't miss and asked me to look after his niece for the day. I refused and he took my car keys while I was getting ready and left before I noticed so that I could not go to work. I grew up with a narcissistic gaslighting father who did stuff like this all the time. I told him to come back in 1 hour or I will call CPS and once they get there, I will call a cab and get to work. He ended up driving back and this turned into a big fight and I told him that if he does it again, I will walk out and never look back. He apologized and said that he was just desperate. The worst happened 2 weeks ago. I needed to travel for a couple of weeks for work and I could not find my passport. I am a very organized person and I knew that I did not misplace it. I ended up calling the non-emergency helpline. They ransacked the house and found the passports hidden in his gym bag. It is a crime to steal passports and they asked me if I wanted to press charges. I said no. Another fight. He told me that he needed me at home that weekend due to a social welfare visit and he knew that I would not stay even if he had asked me. I kicked them both out of my house and I told him I would call the police if he came near me again. My house is a premarital asset, thank God for that. I told him that I would be filing for divorce. The welfare visit turned into shit as neither of them were living there when the worker showed up and the social worker also knew about the recent call to the non-emergency helpline. So, all in all, she was not impressed with our bullshit. He came by 2 days ago. He told me that ended up moving in with his parents. They own and live in a small 2-bedroom apartment. That doesn't qualify according to welfare norms. He ended up asking me for another chance. He asked if I would consider letting him and niece stay until they figured it out or she would have to go to state's care. He told me that there is no way he can afford rent and a carer and begged me. I told him that I could never forgive what he did. He knew my past with my father and he still went ahead and did it. He suggested they could move in and we can work on this at couples counseling. I told him that I could never trust him again and that it was over. He asked me if he could get his parents to take in the niece or even relinquished her care to the state, if I would give him another chance. I think months' worth of anger burst that day. I told him that even though it may appear as if the problem between us is niece, it was actually him. He didn't ask me before taking her in. He did nothing to help. He waved my concerns away whenever I felt burnt out. He took on a responsibility without consulting me and dumped everything on me. He chose to take my keys. He chose to hide my passport. I told him things may have been different. Him, my niece and I may have adapted and become a family if he hadn't made the wrong choice, at my expense, at every turn. I told him to get out of my house, it was over and I never want to see any of them ever again. I still don't know if what I'm doing is right or wrong. I know people wanted some sort of happy ending, but it is what it is. I still have not started the divorce proceedings yet, but I will soon. For now, I am taking a break as it has been a very emotional and draining couple of weeks. My wife will not shut up and I'm not sure I can take it that much longer. Is it possible for that to be a reason to leave? I'm not sure if I should have posted this on AITA instead. But here goes. My wife will not shut up. I'm not talking about your usual chatty Kathy. I mean she, almost literally, will not shut up. She will talk continuously from the moment she knows I am within earshot. Not just in the same room. I mean as soon as it's reasonable to assume that I can hear her. She will not stop talking until I'm gone, and sometimes not even then. On more than one occasion, I've gone into the bathroom, turned on the loud exhaust fan, taken a leisurely dump and then returned to hear her cheerfully engaged in the same conversation she was enjoying before I went in. She also refuses to use the exhaust fan while she's in the restroom because it would prevent her from being heard. So I get to hear all the bathroom noises on top of whatever Homeric epic about her friend's cousin's girlfriend's hairdresser she's blathering on about. I once drove from Tampa, Florida to Chicago, Illinois with her, before we were married. I'm such an idiot. Without saying more than 10 sentences. She did not stop talking the entire way. The entire way. Television onto a show I like? Pfft, that's not a problem. She'll happily turn the volume down so it doesn't get in the way. Having sex? That's the perfect time to tell me about how Olivia Newton-John still has the leather pants she wore in Greece and she, brace yourself, still fits in them, really. Needless to say, we don't go to the movies. Ever. I've been shushed out of too many theaters. I get it. She grew up in a huge Italian Catholic family in the Bronx. If you don't talk loud and constantly, you don't get to talk at all. I, on the other hand, grew up in a Scandinavian family with 2 children. To this day, I'm not sure we ever had a conversation in our house. I actually often wonder if that's what made me attractive to her. I was taught to politely listen to people and then wait for them to finish before replying. She never finishes, or takes a breath it sometimes seems. So to her I'm paying rapt attention to her no matter how much she talks. That's not true though. Another difference between people of Swedish heritage is that we don't use filler words for acknowledgement. Other than the Minnesota nah, useful on every occasion, we're pretty much silent when we listen to others. No or yeah or OMG needed. A nod of the head every 10 minutes or so is all you need to convey your attentiveness. I think it has a lot to with living in the frigid north. You keep your mouth open as much as my wife does, and your teeth are going to shatter from the cold. To her, that's like being in the room with a dead person. She's always stopping to ask, "Are you even listening?" Or say, "You never pay attention to me." Or even quiz me with, "What did I just say?" I've become an expert at storing the last 2 to 4 words she says and parroting them back at her. She'll be like, "Blah blah blah." And then she told him she wasn't taking that kind of crap anymore. And I'll go, "That kind of crap?" As if I had any idea what kind of crap it was or who it was that wouldn't take it anymore. And she'll say, "Yeah," and think I've been paying attention the whole time. I joke about it a lot, but it's actually getting to the point where it's a problem. Our son is 7 years old, and he has developed a pronounced stutter because she interrupts him constantly. Growing up in her house, if anyone paused even for a millisecond, that was grounds for talking over them. And you talked loud so they didn't finish. My son apparently inherited some of my less staccato speech patterns, and she basically just uses that to interrupt and take over the conversation. It got so bad that he started automatically stopping and restarting words, even when not being interrupted. I didn't know that was considered a stutter until we went to one of those parent-teacher night things, and a teacher listened to wife and then turned to me and said, "Well, at least now I know why Josh has a stutter." Just like that. She's failed at least one job interview because of this. I know because I lined it up with a business acquaintance myself. He called me up and said sorry, but he just couldn't take being in the same room with her because she wouldn't stop talking. We rarely are invited for a second couple's date. She monopolizes the conversation every time we go out with other people. Who wants more than one does of that? You're probably wondering, well, have you told her about this? Yes. Many times. Sometimes jokingly. Sometimes with utter seriousness. The reactions vary from anger, talks louder, higher, faster, and uses lots more swear words, to tears. She's the only person I know who can carry on a totally unrelated conversation while sobbing hysterically. The one thing that doesn't happen is her talking any less. I try not to let it get to me. She's a very affectionate woman. Loves me to death. Mother of my child. Pretty as the day we met, prettier even. We still get plenty of alone time. Granted, she won't shut up while we're doing it, but I'm pretty busy so I don't really notice as much. But it does get to me. It's selfish and shows a lack of self-awareness. There's a time and a place for enthusiastic conversation, and they're not always and everywhere. I know the answer to the problem. I have to talk back. In effect, the only thing that possibly could shut her up is for me to do the same thing as she does. I would have to interrupt at the slightest pause. I would have to talk louder, yelling if necessary, when she tries to interrupt me. I would have to learn to use Italian hand gestures to emphasize my points and chop off her objections. But I'm not Italian. I'm a waspy pale dude who grew up in a household that would have made a mortuary sound like a middle school cafeteria. 12 years of this has finally pushed me to the brink. I'm not sure I can take it that much longer. I'm just not sure if I could get a word in to tell the judge why I'm there in his divorce court. My wife wouldn't let me. TL.dr. Wife will not shut up. Is that reasonable grounds for leaving her? Edit, obligatory Reddit. OMG, I had no idea this would blow up. Which is true. I thought maybe a couple of people would just call me an asshole and that would be it. But RIP. Inbox. It was nice to know you. So in the interest of not replying to every comment, I will try to address some of the common ones and answer some of the questions I saw popping up multiple times. Also thanks for the, often hilarious, advice. Q1. Is this BS? Implied. A1. No, it's all mostly true. I admit to some embellishment for dramatic comedic effect though. The bit about the leather pants is representative, not an actual quote. Not from sexy times anyway. She probably mentioned it at some point though. Q2. Why didn't you run away screaming before you got married? Sub-question, was OP's wife hot? A2. Yes, she is hot, and funny, and vivacious. Also, I really was a Nordic silent bear. Thanks, you/Sarah_Dragonfire, my wife drew me out of my shell. And if I'm brutally honest with myself, when you're young and getting laid on the regular, a lot of things don't seem all that terrible. Damn you penis, this is all your fault. Q3. Did your kid really develop a stutter because of this? A3. Medically speaking, I cannot state this with 100% certainty. The cause was never formally diagnosed. However, I watched it happen firsthand. I'm not a qualified speech therapist, but I think it was a reasonable conclusion to draw based on the observations I made. I'd welcome a dissenting opinion from an actual professional though, if only to salve my conscience. Which leads to, Q4. Aren't you really the one responsible for your kid's stutter? After all, you did nothing to stop it. A4. Guilty. And I feel utterly like shit about it all the time. For the record, I did bring it up lots of times, even to the point of getting into arguments about it and speaking harshly to my wife when she interrupted my son. But I think by the time I realized it was happening, most of the damage was done. And anything I could do was more expressing my anger about it than actually making an effective change. All the rest of this weirdly long post is just ranting. If there's an actual justification for leaving, this is it, and I'm deathly afraid that she'll get full custody and just make it worse or even irreparable. Q5. Is it because she's, pick one, OCD, insecure, autistic, mentally ill? A5. I don't think so, although I've always sensed an overwhelming need for attention. I see it in her family dynamic, in that all of her many siblings were in constant competition for their parents' attention and affection. Q6. Have you tried counseling? A6. No, probably should have, but I know her well enough that even mentioning it would shatter her. It's bizarre that I can't bring myself to do a lot of things people have suggested, and believe me, I've probably thought of all of them, because they just seem too cruel to me. And yet, I'm seriously considering divorce. I realize the contradiction there.
I'm divorcing my husband due to his autism impacting our life. How can I end things respectfully while considering his feelings and needs? When I first met my husband, who is now 30 years old, I knew he had autism. We met at university and it never seemed to be a problem at the time. He was what you would describe as quirky, But we fell in love and eventually got married. For a while, everything seemed to be going well despite his autism. Over time, however, he developed some sensory issues, which meant that I had to take on the majority of the housework. I didn't really mind initially because I was pursuing my MA while he went to work. However, as time passed, his autism became more noticeable and began to affect our daily lives in more significant ways. At first, I couldn't have my girlfriends over without giving him a week's notice, and eventually, it became completely off the table. I accepted that he didn't like other people entering our space, so we had our hangouts at my friends' places instead. Then I had to start doing chores on his schedule so he could be mentally prepared for the noise of the vacuum. These were all small adjustments, but they began to add up. A few weeks ago, it hit me that I wanted out of this marriage. I recently finished my PhD and got a job offer in a different state. It is a fantastic offer, and I want to take it. I started looking at places to live, but many of them were already out of the question because they wouldn't accommodate my husband's many rules and sensory needs. As I was searching for new places, I realized that I want to get a divorce. I want to move and be able to vacuum when I want and have friends over whenever I choose. I want to eat out without having to check that the restaurant doesn't play loud music, and I want to eventually meet someone who is capable of doing half of the housework. My decision has been made, but now I face the difficult task of telling my husband that I am leaving. I want to do it respectfully, but at the same time, I feel like he deserves to know why I'm making this decision. I think I am leaving him because he has autism, and I fear that this truth will break him and at the same time make me feel like a horrible person. It is a delicate situation, and I'm not sure how to approach it. I care about him deeply and do not want to hurt him, but I also need to think about my own happiness and well-being. I hope to find a way to explain my feelings honestly without causing him unnecessary pain. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Don't tell him you're leaving him because he's autistic. He's always been autistic and always will be, and you're not leaving him because he's autistic. Focus on the actual reasons. That his needs and boundaries aren't compatible with yours anymore. That your relationship isn't equitable and you're unhappy. That you are not okay being in a relationship where you do 100% of the housework, can never have anyone over, and have to plan everything around his schedule. It's harder when there's a valid underlying reason, but all these things would be true if he wasn't autistic. Comment 2. Yes, this. Usually, you should not tell someone with a disability that their disability is why you're leaving them. At all. If their disability is what makes them incompatible with you, then you should tell them they're incompatible, but don't say that the incompatibility is due to the disability. Comment 3. He will know whether you tell him or not. I have had guys break up with me over my PTSD. Listing my PTSD symptoms, but not naming my PTSD doesn't fool me. I am not an idiot because I'm disabled. Comment 4. That's pretty cruel honestly. It sucks either way, but it's extremely clear that the reason she's leaving is his autism has progressively gotten worse, which is not uncommon. The problems he has are things you can work on, but she's clearly not interested in doing that because it can take years before even slight progress is made. She should tell him because it's the truth. Comment 5. I disagree, and we're taking all the blame away from the husband here because of his disability. I don't care about his supersensibility or whatever, he could just leave the house or find a way. It's the adult thing to do, to try to make up for the things you lack instead of just dumping your problems onto your partner. But he's just letting the wife progressively have more and more work. Relationships are based on boundaries and agreements. Each party gives something in it. That is determined at the start of the relationship, and while some can change, both parties have to agree with it. The husband changed because of his disability, but instead of finding a new way to make things work, the wife just had to progressively take on more and more work. I get it. Autism isn't nice to have. It can be horrible, but the wife isn't his caretaker. She doesn't have the responsibility for that. It's cruel, yes. But she has to just deal with his problems without his help. It's cruel to her. Comment 6. Yes, she is 100% leaving him because of his autism. If he was not autistic, she would stick around. He's not just an asshole. He has a disability she can no longer deal with. Downvote me all you want, but she should definitely be honest with him, especially since he has autism. He likely won't understand otherwise. Comment 7. Nope, she's leaving him because he doesn't help her and she feels isolated from the rest of the world. The only reason this behavior is in any way excusable is because he has a neurodivergent. If anything, one could argue she only stayed with him because he has autism, because without that explanation for the behavior, we'd all be calling him a man-child and probably worse things. He is not a man-child. He's neurodivergent, but he still isn't behaving like a partner. Comment 8. She's not leaving him because he has autism. She's leaving him because she can no longer live with some of the specific things caused by his autism. There's a huge difference. People with autism have their own individual struggles and concerns, and the levels of intensity vary vastly as well. If he were struggling with things that weren't causing such a disruption in her day-to-day life, she may not leave him. That's an important distinction. Comment 9. You're not leaving him because he's autistic. You're leaving him because he is unwilling to compromise. Take it from a married autistic man, marriage is still just as much a give and take as it is for neurotypicals. That being said, he may not realize the impact he is having on you. If he isn't, then it may be a good idea to, either through a series of conversations or therapy, express what you're feeling in a direct manner with specific examples, assuming you haven't done this already. Comment 10. You could tell him that you wanted a partner that equally helps with the house, but it's slowly become your sole responsibility. Marriages are about compromises, but it seems that you've been the one who has to do all the compromises to keep him happy, which has led to your resentment of him. Instead of him managing and taking responsibility for his new sensory issues, he's dealt with it by avoiding it. You're not divorcing him because of his autism, but because of always putting his needs first. You've come to realize that the two of you aren't compatible anymore and can't both have your needs met while keeping the other happy. Highlight comment. Can I also say that these are manageable things? I have ASD and extremely painful sensory processing, like your husband. But I still find ways of managing my house and life. For example, I don't like the vacuum, but I'll use a broom or set my little robot vacuum to do things when I'm not around. The same goes for the washing machine and dryer. I just set them for a time when I'm not around. I also have ear defenders, like concert plugs and noise-canceling headphones, that help me get through chaotic environments. I'll tend to pack away and do the dishes myself because I know I won't clang them, which would normally set off a migraine. I use gloves for nasty textures and have a predictable routine that helps with flexibility around unpredictable things. Also, when having your girlfriends over, does he not have a quiet space in his own home where he can go off and recharge? That's really necessary in general for sensory management. It would feel like chronic torture otherwise. It's not the ASD that's the reason. It's his approach to managing it and the way he's shifting the responsibility onto you. Has he ever gone to therapy or seen an occupational therapist for help on how to navigate adult life? Medication and therapy for both the physical and emotional pain changed my life. Maybe they can help him too? It is kind of disappointing that your reasoning behind this is because he has autism. And you don't want to make an effort to understand your partner's lifelong struggles or try to approach a workable solution. These are things that can be changed, somewhat easily too compared to other issues, and help him for the better. There are so many workable solutions that it is kind of frustrating. What I'd be more upset about is that he isn't trying to contribute to the maintenance of the house and relationship, which is not an autism thing. It's just male entitlement. Just don't blame him for something he can't change. He cannot change that he is autistic. He can change the way he manages it and be fair in supporting you. Be very, very clear with that distinction when you talk to him. Update. It's been 3 days since I posted about wanting to leave my husband because his autism has made it impossible for me to live a normal life. Some of you suggested that he may be using his autism to get out of doing housework, and I'm afraid you were not wrong. Yesterday, I sat him down and explained that the situation had reached a point where I am no longer happy, and I haven't been for a while. I told him that I no longer love him and that there is zero attraction left. However, I still care for him, and I assured him that I was willing to continue paying my share of the rent. We split everything 50-50ths, for 3 more months after I move out so that he has enough time to find a place that suits his needs. He did not take the news well at all. First, he begged me to reconsider, but I stood firm in my decision. Then he accused me of being ableist for leaving him because of his autism. After the tactic didn't work, he admitted that he had simply become too comfortable with me doing everything around the house and that he was now willing to go to therapy with me. Despite his willingness to make changes, I told him that my decision was final. I have already accepted the job offer and will be contacting a divorce lawyer next week. I also informed him that, while I still won't have people over out of respect for him, he will have to start doing his own chores from now on. Just a side note to everyone who assumed that he financed me. University is free here, and you get paid to do your PhD. I teach classes and do field work, so I have been financially independent throughout our relationship. Anyway, that's all for now. I'm excited for the future and am looking forward to being able to have friends over again without any restrictions. Thank you all for your support and advice during this difficult time. Relevant comments. One commenter shared, "My girlfriend and I both have chronic conditions, and she is autistic. I can just manage a day's work, and she can just manage a bit of housework each day. We both put in every ounce of energy we have to make life as best we can as a couple, and her autism doesn't stop that." Another commenter replied, "Well done to you two. It sounds like you're both giving it your all." A different commenter expressed surprise at OP's generosity. "I'm honestly surprised you're going to pay for half of his rent for 3 months. You should get your stuff, leave and only contact him through a lawyer. He's no longer your responsibility." Someone else replied, "OP, you're a really, really good person. I really hated the nasty comments some people left. Everyone was on their high horses, but I'm sure no one would put up with the nonsense you did. You get one shot to be happy in life, and you would have been miserable if you didn't make this change. Could you imagine if you wanted kids? You'd either have them with this guy or be forced to forego it to care for your spouse forever. Never let anyone think you did anything other than the exact right thing here. You're going above and beyond for him. Good luck, you deserve happiness." Another commenter encouraged OP, "Good on you for leaving and standing firm in your decision. You deserve to be happy and nothing less. You deserve to be valued and appreciated. I think your husband will see his fault in all of this, hiding behind his autism, and will be forced to stop doing it because you won't be around to take care of him. He's not your problem anymore." Finally, one commenter shared their personal experience. "I was diagnosed with Asperger's as a teenager. These days my condition is called high-functioning autism, and I do the most housework in my family during the week. He is not physically disabled. He's just using autism as an excuse, which is a shame. Good for you for realizing and getting out. I hope you can soon find someone who values you and isn't just taking advantage. All the best." Highlight comments. Comment 1. I have had ADHD my entire life and was diagnosed at a very young age, before I was 5 years old, although back then they called it ADD. I ride longboards, but noises from people in traffic bother me, so I wear noise-canceling earbuds. I literally cannot balance on a longboard or skateboard unless I block out a lot of surrounding noise. I get vertigo and lose my balance even when I'm just standing if there are certain noises bothering me. I discovered that ADHD places me somewhere on the autism spectrum as well. While I have always had issues with noises, I do not make other people change their lives to revolve around me and my disorders. There are plenty of options available, such as noise-canceling headphones, earbuds, and earplugs, which this man could have used. He simply did not want to take these measures. My ex did the same kind of thing to me as well. In fact, my ex went as far as to fake his problems. I also have bipolar disorder, and my ex started lying to our doctor and pretending he had it too, using it as an excuse to abuse me at home. Every time he yelled at me, had a mood swing, or pushed me, he claimed it was because he was bipolar. The truth is, he is not bipolar. I am the one with bipolar disorder. I know this might sound harsh, but he might not even have autism in the first place. My ex read books on bipolar disorder to fake it better, and this man might have studied autism and blamed every bad habit on it. People do that, you know? My ex was getting medication for bipolar disorder but was stashing it without taking it. I found months and months of medication packages he was not using, despite getting them filled at the pharmacy to make it look like he was taking his meds. I have his container of meds and a package, and I've already shown it to a lawyer to prove that he lies about having mental health issues. Comment 2. I have ADHD and autism has been suspected but not yet diagnosed. Life can definitely be tough for me sometimes. I struggle with loud and dissonant noises, surprises, and unexpected changes. I get overwhelmed easily, tend to shut down, and experience major anxiety. I understand that it can make functioning difficult at times, and sometimes I need my significant other to be patient with me. However, it is still not an excuse to never do anything and hold your spouse's life hostage. In this case, the individual was definitely using excuses and taking advantage of the situation. Am I the A for resuming my career and leaving my husband to handle his autistic niece after he unilaterally made me her primary caregiver? Originally posted 1 month ago, my husband, who is 30 years old, became the legal guardian of his 17-year-old niece 2 months ago, following the loss of her single mother last year. Initially my in-laws took her in, but due to their age, it became too challenging for them to care for her. As a result, my husband stepped in as her guardian despite my reservations. He assured me that he would handle all her care responsibilities. We got married a year ago after dating for 15 years. I had a very successful career in a demanding field, both physically and mentally, which required a lot of travel. We planned to start a family, and I agreed to become a stay-at-home mom. I quit my job a few months into our marriage when I became pregnant, but unfortunately, I had a miscarriage. Shortly after, his sister passed away, putting all our plans on hold. During this time, I took on a part-time job in a related field that allows me to work remotely, so I would not be bored. My sister-in-law was a nurse who left her job to care for her daughter full-time. Her daughter faces multiple challenges, including nonverbal autism, various developmental disorders like dyslexia, and severe sensory issues. My husband claims that he handles most of the caregiving responsibilities, but the reality is quite different. Since I work part-time from home, most of the caregiving duties fall to me. His niece often gets angry and has frequent meltdowns. She dislikes the food I prepare, and she usually ends up throwing it on the floor or at me. It has become emotionally exhausting, and I am at my wit's end. On December 15th, my husband was working late and asked me to take care of dinner. She is extremely picky about food, and even the slightest change in texture or taste can trigger a meltdown. That night she threw her plate at my feet, causing me to bleed. I called my husband, demanding that he come home immediately, but he said he couldn't. I retreated to my room, telling him I could no longer handle the situation. When he finally returned hours later, she was still crying, and he was furious with me. He called me heartless and irresponsible. I responded that I was fed up with both of their ungrateful behavior, and informed him that I was going to stay with my mother until New Year's. My husband panicked and tried to apologize, but I left anyway. He called me every day pleading for me to come back. When I eventually returned, he told me that my departure had forced him to use all his available leave to stay home with her. He said he was glad I was back. I then informed him that I had contacted my former company and secured my old job, which would start the following Monday. The job requires me to work in the office and involves a lot of travel. He asked who would stay home with his niece since she cannot be left alone, he has no more leave, and full-time caretakers are too expensive. I reminded him that he had promised to handle everything when he became her guardian, so it was his responsibility. As you might expect, my family supports my decision, while his family believes I am being extremely selfish. Therefore I am seeking judgment from impartial strangers. Am I the A in this situation? Update posted today. Many people have been messaging me for an update, so here it is. Unfortunately, I cannot say things have improved. My husband took a few days off work to interview special needs nannies and caretakers. Eventually he found a well-qualified and experienced person for the job, hiring her to work from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. on weekdays. One day, the nanny had an emergency and informed us she could not come in for a couple of days. My husband had an important meeting that he could not miss and asked me to take care of his niece for the day. I refused. In response, he took my car keys while I was getting ready and left before I noticed, effectively preventing me from going to work. This behavior reminded me of my narcissistic, gaslighting father who often did similar things. I told my husband that he had 1 hour to return home, or I would call Child Protective Services. Once CPS arrived, I planned to call a cab to get to work. He eventually returned home, leading to a significant argument. I warned him that if he ever did something like this again, I would leave and never look back. He apologized, saying he acted out of desperation. The worst happened 2 weeks ago. I needed to travel for work for a couple of weeks, and I could not find my passport. Being a very organized person, I knew I had not misplaced it. I ended up calling the non-emergency helpline. They searched the house thoroughly and found the passports hidden in his gym bag. Since it is a crime to steal passports, they asked me if I wanted to press charges. I decided not to press charges, which led to another argument. He told me that he needed me at home that weekend due to a social welfare visit and knew that I would not stay even if he had asked me. In response, I kicked both him and his niece out of my house and told him I would call the police if he came near me again. Fortunately, my house is a premarital asset. I informed him that I would be filing for divorce. The welfare visit turned into a disaster as neither of them were living there when the worker arrived, and the social worker was also aware of the recent call to the non-emergency helpline. So, all in all, she was not impressed with our bullshit. He came by 2 days ago and told me that he ended up moving in with his parents. They live in a small 2-bedroom apartment, which does not meet the welfare requirements. He asked me for another chance and if I would consider letting him and his niece stay until they figure things out. Otherwise, she would have to go into state care. He explained that he cannot afford rent and a carer and begged for my help. I told him that I could never forgive him for what he did. He knew about my past with my father, yet he still went ahead and did it. He suggested that they could move back in, and that we could work on our issues through couples counseling. I told him that I could never trust him again and that our relationship was over. He then asked if I would give him another chance if his parents took in the niece or if he relinquished her care to the state. At that point, months' worth of anger burst out. I told him that the problem between us was not his niece, but actually him. He did not ask me before taking her in and did nothing to help. He dismissed my concerns whenever I felt burnt out. He took on a responsibility without consulting me and then dumped it all on me. He chose to take my keys and hide my passport. I told him things could have been different. He, his niece and I might have adapted and become a family if he had not made the wrong choices at every turn, at my expense. I told him to get out of my house, that it was over, and that I never want to see any of them ever again. I still do not know if what I am doing is right or wrong. I know people wanted some sort of happy ending, but it is what it is. I have not started the divorce proceedings yet, but I will soon. For now, I am taking a break as it has been a very emotional and draining couple of weeks. Relevant comment. One commenter shared that she has 2 children of her own, and is a single mother. Her parents also have 2 small adopted children, who are closely related to their family, and have been with them most of their lives. When she began dating her current boyfriend, she made it clear from the beginning that she essentially has 4 children. She explained that if something were to happen to her parents, she would take custody of her siblings. She had helped raise these kids since birth, acting as a third parent alongside her mom, taking on many parental responsibilities. This was non-negotiable for her, and she discussed it with her boyfriend before they got serious. She gave him time to consider if he was prepared to take on the responsibility of 4 children. This is how adults handle such situations. They discuss and ensure both parties are on the same page rather than assuming responsibilities and dumping them on their partner without warning. Reply to the comment. Exactly. You took the time to communicate it, and he knew before getting involved with you. You did not just dump the kids on him and expect him to deal with it. Commenter response. And if he had not been okay with it, we would have figured out the best plan. This husband expected her to drop everything to care for his niece, who seemed to need more care than OP could provide, given her severe meltdowns. It is not a reflection on OP, but you cannot throw someone into such a situation and expect them to manage. Both OP and the niece deserve better. Another commenter. It does not matter. It is not OP's responsibility. Raising a child is a huge commitment, especially a special needs autistic child with violent outbursts. Not everyone is equipped or should be expected to handle that alone. Even if no other family was available to help and the parents could not take custody, they could still assist. They did not. Additional comment. It is a lack of empathy. They recognize that family members may have valid reasons for not taking in a special needs child who will need lifelong care. However, they do not understand that others have their own lives and needs. If anyone's needs negatively impact them, they perceive it as selfishness. To these people, everyone else is an NPC, existing only to serve their needs. Another perspective. For me, this was actually the happy ending I was hoping for. It was clear who the real problem was in this story, and I am glad she kicked him out. Edit. It always amazes me how partners ignore every complaint and plead for help or change. Then, when it is too late, they suddenly agree to make all the concessions they previously refused. Why do they only do that in the find out phase and not in the fucked around phase when there is still a chance to salvage the situation? Comment on familial pressure. Familial pressure, a sense of duty, and the desire to be a hero can influence decisions. In theory, it is admirable for someone to want to take care of a family. State care often has a poor reputation, and it is understandable to be concerned about the level of care a disabled family member would receive from the state. The problem is that he never discussed any of this with his wife, made a unilateral decision, and then made it his wife's problem. It is easy to be the hero when someone else is making all the sacrifices. He pleased his parents and took the glory of being the stand-up guy while his wife did all the actual work of raising his niece. Comment on social services expectations. In most areas, social services expect the child to have their own room. If it was just the in-laws and the niece, it would have been fine, with the in-laws in one bedroom and the niece in the second. The problem arose when OP's husband moved in, leaving insufficient room. OP mentioned that the in-laws did take in the niece after her mother passed away, but they could not handle her due to their age and handed her off to their son. Everyone knew caring for the niece would be a significant challenge, but they were willing to ignore it as long as OP was dealing with it. In my opinion, the main issue in this story revolves around the tension and family conflict that arose when the husband unilaterally decided to become the legal guardian of his autistic niece without consulting his wife. This decision led to significant stress and disagreements within the family. One key detail worth discussing is the husband's unilateral decision. Making such a significant decision without consulting his spouse highlights the importance of communication and mutual agreement in a marriage, especially when it comes to decisions that impact both partners. Another important aspect is the burden of caregiving. The wife was left to handle most of the caregiving responsibilities while also working from home. This situation underscores the unfair distribution of family duties and the necessity for mutual support in a marriage. The husband's controlling behavior, such as taking her car keys and hiding her passport to force her to stay home, is another critical point. This behavior is indicative of controlling and abusive tendencies, which is a serious issue that needs to be addressed in relationships. The story also raises questions about the rights and responsibilities within a marriage. It is crucial to ensure that decisions are made fairly and that both partners' opinions are respected. The lack of support from the husband's family in assisting with the niece's care is also notable. This situation highlights the importance of family and community support when caring for individuals with special needs. Finally, the wife's decision to pursue divorce after enduring significant stress and emotional strain is a critical aspect. It reflects the severity of the issues and the impact on the family relationship. Overall, this story touches on several important themes, including communication, fairness in caregiving responsibilities, recognizing and addressing controlling behaviors, and the importance of support from family and community. It provides valuable lessons on the importance of mutual respect and support in a family. What about you? Please comment below to let me know your thoughts on this issue, or other more interesting issues in the story above.